Chapter 274. For example, Shaoqin had obtained the silver warship from the ancient remnant. However, it was badly damaged. After Shaoqin used the spirit-gathering formation to repair it with much difficulty, he could barely fly. He did not know how long it would take for him to repair the offensive formations in it. There was another secret treasure, the Eastern Emperor Bell. It was also badly damaged. After he repaired it with the astral iron, he thought he could still use it. However, there were problems now. The damaged nature of secret treasures caused the value of secret treasures to plummet. However, if it was a complete secret treasure, it would be a different story. Yun Kursin continued, I believe you know the importance of secret treasures to cultivators. You will definitely fancy some secret treasures in this auction. At that time, you will need a lot of spirit stones. After beating around the bush, Yun Kursin returned to the topic. Shaoqin could not help but laugh hoarsely. If it was really as Yun Kursin said and there would be a large number of complete secret treasures, it would definitely attract many strong cultivators to come and bid for them. With so many people bidding, the price of the secret treasures would definitely soar. Even with the 5,000 medial grade spirit stones that Shaoqin had, he might not be able to obtain the secret treasure that he fancied. Thinking of this, Shaoqin smiled faintly and said, Very well, state your price. I will sell the roaming dragon saber. Yun Kursin revealed a faint smile on her delicate face. She said, You should have guessed that the roaming dragon saber has some secret to it. That's why I am willing to buy it. Are you not afraid of suffering a loss? To Shaoqin, the roaming dragon saber was an unexpected gain. It could be said to be something that cost nothing. To him, it was not a loss. Furthermore, Shaoqin had studied this roaming dragon saber for a period of time. However, he could not make any headway. He only knew that it was a sharp treasure saber. If Yun Kursin could find some secrets in the saber, it would be her fortuitous encounter. It had nothing to do with Shaoqin. Shaoqin said with a smile, It's not a loss. I don't need the blue sea wandering dragon daggers at all. Besides, since you said you wouldn't let me suffer any losses, I believe you will. Yun Kursin was mildly surprised. She did not expect Shaoqin to be so open-minded. She hesitated for a while before saying, Actually, there is an inferior grade heaven-ranked cultivation technique, roaming dragon incantation, hidden within the roaming dragon saber. My Yun clan has a movement technique that comes with it. It is also called the roaming dragon steps. If we use it together with the roaming dragon steps, its might will increase by many times. When Shaoqin heard this, his expression changed slightly. Among all the manuals, cultivation techniques were the most valuable. This was because martial techniques and movement techniques could not directly increase a cultivator's realm and cultivation. A heaven-ranked cultivation technique was a true top-notch cultivation technique on the continent. Even if it was just a basic cultivation technique, it was still a priceless treasure. As far as Shaoqin knew, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion only had 3 heaven-ranked martial techniques. Only the Pavilion Master's bloodline could practice them, they were the true treasures of the sect. Yun Kursin continued, however, the cultivation technique inside requires some special methods in order to extract it completely. I promise you that after I obtain the roaming dragon incantation, I will make a copy for you. Shaoqin took out the roaming dragon saber from the universe ring and handed it to Yun Kursin. If you can really do it, I can give you this roaming dragon saber. Yun Kursin received the roaming dragon saber and revealed a faint smile on her face. She said, This is just an agreement between you and me. The one who truly wants to buy the roaming dragon saber is the clan's decision. The 5,000 medial grade spirit stones will be given to you, not a single one missing. Shaoqin thought for a while and understood the meaning behind Yun Kursin's words. The Yun clan would definitely not leak out the roaming dragon incantation after obtaining it. Yun Kursin wanted to make a copy for him. She had put in a lot of courage. If the Yun clan knew about this, they would definitely not agree. 3 days later, I will gather the spirit stones and give them to you. You should rest first. After Yun Kursin spoke, she took her leave. Late at night, the Yun clan head, Yun Yuji, and a group of elders gathered in a secret room of the Yun clan. They all had grave expressions. An elder said to Yun Yuji, clan head, we still have not found out the identity of that Yi Chen. This person seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. We only know that he went to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion with Feng Feishua's recommendation letter. When Yun Yuji heard this, he revealed a grave expression. After a while, he said, never mind, just give him the 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Don't think about anything else. An elder said unhappily, clan head, 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones is the accumulation of our Yun clan over 100 years. Yun Yuji waved his hand and said, spirit stones are inanimate objects in the end. With this heaven-ranked cultivation technique, we can nurture at least 10 loyal martial kings. It would be sufficient for our Yun clan to suppress the other 2 great clans in Shiha City. Furthermore, this person has a close relationship with the Feng clan. If we make a move on him, it will be easy to offend the Feng clan. Furthermore, I do not wish to put Kursen in a difficult position. Don't mention the matter of silencing him again. There were still 3 more days before the auction started. During these 3 days, Xiaochen did not stop. He made good use of his time every day to cultivate, stabilizing his strength as a peak inferior grade martial saint. He was making preparations to break through to medial grade martial saint. Once he became a medial grade martial saint, Xiaochen would be able to use the large number of medial grade spirit stones in the universe ring. The spiritual energy contained in medial grade spirit stones was not only pure, but it was also very vast. Using a medial grade spirit stone to cultivate for a day was equivalent to cultivating for a week normally. Furthermore, this was based on the density of Lingyun mountain range's spiritual energy. If it was based on the density of spiritual energy on the ground, it would be equivalent to cultivating for half a month normally. This was also why the value of medial grade spirit stones was so high. To cultivators, their lives would come to an end one day. Within a limited amount of time, they would be able to absorb as much spiritual energy as possible. Their cultivation would also increase. To Xiaochen, the large amount of time he could save was incomparably important. Xiaochen only started cultivating at the age of 15. As for those geniuses, they started cultivating from the moment they were born. They were many times stronger than him. Hence, Xiaochen did not dare to relax for even a moment. Even so, his cultivation was still lower than those geniuses. Hence, he had to think of other methods. Medial grade spirit stones was one of them. It was an important method for him to catch up to those geniuses. This was also one of the reasons why Xiaochen agreed to sell the roaming dragon saber to Yun Kursen. It was because he urgently needed a large number of medial grade spirit stones. 3 days passed very quickly. Early in the morning, Xiaochen had just opened his eyes when he felt a strong aura slowly heading towards his courtyard. Xiaochen got up and rushed out. He discovered the Yun clan's clan head, Yun Yuji. He cupped his hands and said, Senior Yun, is there something you need from me? Yun Yuji's gaze was like lightning as he scanned Xiaochen from head to toe. He nodded to himself. Although Xiaochen's cultivation was not very high, his essence was calm and reserved. There was no sense of restlessness. It was clear that he had put in a lot of effort into it. Furthermore, from the information that he had gathered in the past 3 days, he had gained a deeper understanding of Xiaochen's strength. He knew that although Xiaochen was only an inferior grade martial saint, he was not weak at all. He knew that although Xiaochen was only an inferior grade martial saint, his true combat prowess was already comparable to a regular superior grade martial saint. Being able to have such a cultivation at such a young age, his future would be even brighter. Hence, Yun Yuji completely gave up on the idea of killing Xiaochen to renege on the 5,000 medial grade spirit stones. If he was not careful and allowed Xiaochen to escape, the Yun clan would be in trouble when he matured. Instead, he might as well build a good relationship with Xiaochen before he matured. In the future, the Yun clan might gain a strong helper. Yun Yuji collected his thoughts and smiled. 5,000 medial grade spirit stones is a large sum for the Yun clan. I only managed to gather them now. With a hua-la-la sound, Yun Yuji flipped his palm and a large pile of glittering meteor-grade spirit stones appeared on the ground. Under the sunlight, they were very dazzling. This was not the first time Xiao Chen had seen so many meteor-grade spirit stones. However, he still felt somewhat excited in his heart. However, he still maintained a calm expression. That's right, our Yun clan will be going to the auction today as well. Do you want to come with us? Yun Yuji invited warmly. Xiao Chen preferred peace and quiet. Furthermore, he did not want too many people to know about the things he was auctioning. So he could only reject politely. Yun Yuji smiled faintly and did not force the matter. Then, he took out a VIP card and handed it to Xiao Chen. He said, "This VIP card can give you a VIP room in the auction. Keep it. Consider it a small token of this Yun's appreciation." Xiao Chen had always been a straightforward person. This VIP card was useful to him and could save him some trouble. Xiao Chen did not reject it and received the VIP card. He thanked Yun Yuji, "Many thanks for Senior Yun's kind intentions. I will remember this favor." Yun Yuji laughed loudly and said, "It is just a VIP card. It is not much of a favor. I will take my leave first." After Yun Yuji left, Xiao Chen slowly calculated in his heart. Adding the 5,000 meteor-grade spirit stones from earlier, the 5,000 meteor-grade spirit stones from the underground world, and the 200 meteor-grade spirit stones from the mission reward, there was a total of 10,200 meteor-grade spirit stones. There was a total of 10,200 meteor-grade spirit stones. This was a huge sum. If converted to inferior-grade spirit stones, it would be 100. Such a large sum was comparable to the accumulation of some noble clans for hundreds of years. If he used all of it for cultivation, it would be sufficient for him for a long time. There were also some inferior-grade spirit stones. These inferior-grade spirit stones came from a variety of sources. Some were exchanged with gold, some with spirit pills, and many were obtained from bandits in the Devil Savannah. All in all, there were about 100,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. To Xiao Chen, these inferior-grade spirit stones were no longer very useful. He could only use them as currency to conduct transactions. Aside from this, there were also some demonic cores that he obtained in the subspace. If he exchanged them for spirit stones, they would be a large sum. After he finished his calculations, Xiao Chen said, "No matter how good the treasures in the auction are, I can only spend 3,000 meteor-grade spirit stones at most. The remainder have to be used for cultivation." Originally, Xiao Chen's goal in the auction was to obtain a lightning-attributed martial technique. At most, he would only need to spend 100,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. However, when he heard from Yun Kursen that there would be a large number of secret treasures in the auction, he had no choice but to have another goal. To a regular cultivator, secret treasures could only increase their combat prowess. However, to Xiao Chen, with the help of the Compendium of Cultivation, he could obtain some complete secret treasures. Who knows, he might be able to refine his own secret treasures in the future. Chapter 275. If he could completely grasp the method of refining secret treasures, he would not have to worry about not having enough spirit stones to use in the future. Thus, this secret treasure was something that Xiao Chen wanted to obtain. Not long later, Lu Suifeng rushed over. He had an excited expression on his face. Lu Suifeng said, "Yi Chen, the Yun clan had invited us to the auction. Are you going?" Xiao Chen shook his head, "I have already rejected him. If you want to go, you can go by yourself. I prefer peace and quiet." Lu Suifeng said, "Never mind, I will go with you." The two of them stopped talking and walked out of the Yun residence. After they found out the address of Linlang Pavilion, they immediately headed over. Along the way, they met many cultivators rushing over. They were all heading in the direction of Linlang Pavilion. There were people from all sorts of sects and places. It was very lively. The two of them were not slow, they arrived at the entrance of Linlang Pavilion after 10 minutes. However, they discovered that there were many cultivators gathered at the entrance. However, they were all blocked by the guards. After asking around, they found out that the requirements for this auction were very high. Those without a martial saint cultivation or an invitation card were not allowed to enter. This way, a large group of martial grand masters were blocked at the entrance. There were many of these cultivators, and they all had dissatisfied expressions on their faces. However, they did not dare to act recklessly. Lu Suifeng said in a soft voice, "Fortunately, I am already an inferior grade martial saint. Otherwise, I would not even have the qualifications to enter. This standard is very high. It was necessary for the requirements to be high. The space in Linlang Pavilion was fixed. If so many people were allowed in, the seats would not be high. Then, the auction would not be able to continue." The two of them parted the crowd and walked towards the entrance. The guards at the entrance took a look at their cultivation and let them in. They did not stop them. "Please purchase your tickets first." Just as the two of them stepped through the entrance, they saw a simple counter at the side. A pretty girl behind the counter spoke to them. Lu Suifeng was about to step forward and ask when Xiao Qin stopped him. He took out the VIP card that Yun Yuji had given him. The woman took the VIP card and glanced at it. She immediately smiled and said, "So the two of you have a VIP card. In that case, there is no need to buy a ticket. You can go directly to the second floor and find the room number." Xiao Qin took back the VIP card and walked to the second floor of the auction house with Lu Suifeng. The auction house had an arched structure. At a glance, the seats in the hall were almost all occupied. It was bustling with activity and people were surging about. Xiao Qin found a manservant. Under the manservant's guidance, he quickly found his private room. The space in the private room was very spacious. The window was wide open, and one could clearly see everything in the hall from the inside. The field of vision was very wide. Lu Suifeng felt it was strange and asked, "I did not expect there to be a private room." "That's right, when did you get your VIP card? Don't tell me this Linlang Pavilion was opened by that damn fatso." Xiao Qin sat comfortably on the round wooden chair. He took a sip of tea and said, "Of course not. The VIP card was sent by Yun Yuji this morning." Lu Suifeng said unconvinced, "How depressing, why didn't that fellow give me one?" Xiao Qin smiled faintly, "If you sold him a heaven-ranked spirit weapon, he would have given you one. Let's not talk about it anymore. The auctioneer is coming." Lu Suifeng stopped asking and looked through the window. Indeed, he saw the auctioneer walking out with a smile on his face. With the appearance of the auctioneer, the chatter in the hall gradually died down. When the noise completely quieted down, when everything quietened down, the auctioneer's loud and clear voice rang out in everyone's ears, "Thank you, everyone, for participating in our Linlang Pavilion's once-a-decade large-scale auction. I will make a long story short. After a simple introduction of the auction, we will begin immediately. We will not waste everyone's time. This auction will be divided into 10 rounds. The things auctioned will be more precious with each round. It is as everyone guessed." After the auctioneer said this, he paused for a while before raising his voice, "In every round, we will auction a complete secret treasure." "That's right, a complete, undamaged ancient secret treasure that can be used immediately after the auction." Just as the auctioneer's passionate voice fell, the quiet hall was immediately filled with the sounds of discussions. The hall became noisy once again. "It is really a complete secret treasure, a total of 10 complete secret treasures. Linlang Pavilion is really generous. I heard long ago that the gates to the demon battlefield reopened. Looks like after this auction, there will be even more cultivators going there to try their luck. Haha, without the cultivation of a martial king, if you want to go to the demon battlefield, aside from seeking death, there is no other result. Even a martial king might not be safe and sound there. This time, I heard that many famous martial kings have died there. Demon battlefield, this was the second time Xiao Qin heard of this term. Xiao Qin thought to himself, what kind of place is that? Why would there be secret treasures there? If I have time in the future, I can go there and join in the excitement. The auctioneer looked at the hall and was very satisfied with the effect of the discussion. After the voices gradually became weaker, the auctioneer looked at the hall and was very satisfied. After the voices slowly weakened, a clear and resonant voice rang out once again, "The rules of the auction will not change. Everyone knows this, so I will not say it. There is only one change. All transactions can only be completed with spirit stones. A medial grade spirit stone can be exchanged for 100 inferior grade spirit stones. Now, the auction officially begins. The first auction item will now be revealed. It is a superior grade spirit stone. The starting bid is 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones. The auction will now begin." The first item to be auctioned was actually a superior grade spirit stone. Not only was Xiaochen and his booth surprised, but everyone in the hall was also shocked. A superior grade spirit stone was equivalent to 100 medial grade spirit stones, which was 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones. However, everyone knew that this was not how the price was calculated. Just like how no one would be foolish enough to exchange a medial grade spirit stone for an inferior grade spirit stone for no reason, no one would use a superior grade spirit stone to exchange for an inferior grade spirit stone. The value of a superior grade spirit stone was no longer as simple as a spirit stone. It could be considered a natural treasure. The spiritual energy contained in it was not only incredibly pure, but it was also large and gentle. A cultivator of any cultivation realm could use it. For cultivators below Martial Saint, it could even raise their cultivation by an entire realm. However, no one would use a superior grade spirit stone when they were below Martial Saint. That would be a waste of a treasure. Only when one was a martial king or martial monarch would they be able to completely absorb the energy in the superior grade spirit stone without wasting anything. With the density of spiritual energy in the Great Qin nation, the few spirit veins might not even produce a single superior grade spirit stone within 10 years. This showed how rare superior grade spirit stones were. When Xiaochen saw the superior grade spirit stone glowing with a spiritual light, he could not help but be tempted. A superior grade spirit stone was something that could only be found and not sought. It had a fatal attraction to almost all cultivators. Lu Suifeng shook his head and sighed, "AI, a large-scale auction is really different. This is only the first auction item, and I can't help but want to buy it." Perhaps it was because the superior grade spirit stone was too shocking to the crowd, there was a momentary silence. No one immediately called out a bid. 20,000 inferior grade spirit stones. 20,000 inferior grade spirit stones. I bid 30,000 inferior grade spirit stones. 50,000. However, after that, there was a continuous stream of bids in the hall. Every time, the price increased by 10,000. Soon, the price of the superior grade spirit stone reached 50,000 inferior grade spirit stones. After the price passed 50,000 inferior grade spirit stones, the number of bids decreased. After all, although a superior grade spirit stone was good, there was a limit to its value. A martial saint would only be able to obtain 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones in a year through all sorts of missions and hard work. If they did not have any fortuitous encounters, they would only be able to obtain 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones at most. That would be considered doing well. If they did not do well, they would be lucky to have 5,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Even so, 50,000 inferior grade spirit stones would require 5 years to accumulate. If they only used one superior grade spirit stone, the gains would not make up for the losses. After all, a superior grade spirit stone could only be used after one became a martial king. Not being able to use it after buying it was a problem. 60,000. 70,000. 75,000. 80,000. After the hall was silent for a while, there were bids again. At this moment, the ones bidding were all martial kings and cultivators with strong clans and sects backing them. The auctioneer revealed a joyful expression. He originally thought that the bid would only reach 50,000 inferior grade spirit stones. He did not expect it to reach 80,000. 80,000 going once. 80,000 going twice. Is there anyone who bids higher than 80,000? If there is none, this superior grade spirit stone will belong to the person in booth 8. In booth 8 on the second floor, there were two old men watching the auction below with indifferent expressions. These two old men were famous solitary martial kings in the Shiha province. However, if one looked carefully at their eyes, they would discover that under their indifferent expressions, there was a hidden evil intent. They were incomparably ferocious. If the people below saw their appearances, they would definitely be able to recognize their names. One of them was Gu Yuntian and the other was Gu Yunfei. These two were blood-related brothers. They had a famous nickname in the Shiha province. They were known as the Shiha twin demons. They were very ruthless in their actions. Killing others for their treasures was a common occurrence. Gu Yunfei smiled and said, "Big brother, it looks like this superior grade spirit stone belongs to you." Gu Yuntian smiled faintly and said, "I have been stuck at early stage inferior grade martial king for 10 years already. With this superior grade spirit stone, I will definitely be able to reach peak inferior grade martial king." One should not underestimate the difference between early stage inferior grade martial king and peak inferior grade martial king. After martial saint, it was very difficult to advance by a grade. However, with every increase in grade, one's strength would increase significantly. When one became a martial king, this situation would be even more obvious. Some cultivators with insufficient talent would be stuck at early stage inferior grade martial king for their entire lives. If one did not have enough talent and wanted to advance further, they could only think of other methods. This superior grade spirit stone was one such method. In booth 9, beside booth 8, a group of Night Spirit Palace disciples sat together. One of them said, "Senior Brother Mu, are you not going to bid for this superior grade spirit stone?" Chapter 276. The youth addressed as Senior Brother Mu was the top expert of the Night Spirit Palace, Mu Qingxue. He revealed a casual smile on his handsome face. He said, "Superior grade spirit stones are indeed precious. However, the price is already too high. There is no need to make a move. Furthermore, to me, it is something that is not essential. If I have it, it would be the icing on the cake. If not, it would not matter." The other disciples did not understand Mu Qingshue's words. Only Mu Yanxu understood what he meant. Superior grade spirit stones were very useful to cultivators with low talent. For example, Gu Yuntian. Although he had advanced to martial king, he was not talented enough. He was stuck at inferior grade martial king for 10 years. However, to a genius like Mu Qingxue, such a huge bottleneck could not happen to him. With Mu Qingshue's talent, he would only encounter such a huge bottleneck after he became a peak superior grade martial king. Hence, this superior grade spirit stone would only be the icing on the cake for him. Inside the booth, Xiaochen thought for a while. In the end, he decided to give up. His reason was the same as Mu Qingshue's. The price of 80,000 inferior grade spirit stones was already too high. It was not worth it to buy it. Furthermore, he still had the Golden Lion King's spirit core in his universe ring. The Golden Lion King had the bloodline of an ancient mutated beast. Its spirit core was no weaker than a superior grade spirit stone. In the future, if he met with a bottleneck, he could use the Golden Lion King's spirit core to replace it. 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones, I want it. Just as the auctioneer was about to close the deal, another bid resounded in the hall. Furthermore, it was 20,000 inferior grade spirit stones in one go. The auctioneer revealed an excited expression. He said excitedly, "Booth 20, someone bid 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Is there a higher bid? This is a superior grade spirit stone. It can raise a martial king by 1 grade. Friend in booth 8, do you still want to raise the bid?" Bang! Guyuntian smashed the teacup on the table with his palm. The teacup immediately shattered into powder. The indifferent expression on his face completely disappeared. He became very ferocious and revealed a murderous intent. Guyunfei said, "Big brother, I still have 150,000 inferior grade spirit stones here. Let's see if he still dares to raise the bid." A cruel smile appeared on Guyuntian's face as he said, "There's no need. I want to see who dares to compete with me. I will make him spit it out with interest." Guyunfei reacted and a smile appeared on his face. He had almost forgotten what he was doing. After the auction, he could just snatch it back. When Xiaochen heard the bid of 100,000 silver taels, he was mildly astonished. This was obviously not the true value of a superior grade spirit stone. It was too much of a loss. After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Xian's spiritual sense shot toward booth 20 like an arrow. A moment later, he saw the owner of booth 20. Chu Chaoyun. Xiaochen said doubtfully, "What does he want this superior grade spirit stone for? With his talent, there is no need for it." Chu Chaoyun, who was in the private room, frowned slightly. It was like he could feel someone spying on him. He said to the girl beside him, "Go out and check who is in private room 8. I can sense 2 intense killing intents." Xiaochen quickly withdrew his spiritual sense. He thought that Chu Chaoyun had sensed his spiritual sense. It turned out that it was someone else. In the end, no one made a bid for the superior grade spirit stone. Chu Chaoyun won it at the exorbitant price of 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones. The auction continued. The second item was not as dazzling. It was only an inferior grade earth-ranked spirit weapon. The starting bid was 1,000 inferior grade spirit stones. In the end, it was won by a cultivator from a small sect for 5,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Aside from the superior grade spirit stone at the start, the other items in the first round were very precious. However, Xiaochen was not interested in them. On the other hand, Lu Suifeng spent 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones to bid for a superior grade earth-ranked martial technique. That martial technique was pretty good. It was considered a good item among superior grade earth-ranked martial techniques. Soon, the first round of the auction was about to end. At the final moment, the auctioneer's voice was clearly much more excited. Suddenly, 2 cultivators went up to the auction platform. The auctioneer explained, "Everyone should be able to guess what the final item is. We have decided to use the most thorough method to display this secret treasure to everyone." Of the 2 cultivators, one had a very high cultivation. He was as strong as a peak superior grade martial disciple. The other was only an ordinary martial grand master. The auctioneer nodded to the 2 of them. The peak martial saint started to store up energy. His aura slowly gathered. The nearby cultivators could feel the pressure. When his aura reached its peak, the peak martial saint roared ferociously and punched at the martial grand master in front of him. Boom! Before everyone's astonished gazes, a light barrier suddenly appeared on the martial grand master's body. When the peak martial saint's full-powered strike struck the light barrier, it gave off a muffled sound. There were ripples on the light barrier, but it did not show any signs of breaking. On the contrary, the peak martial saint's complexion turned pale from the rebound of the light barrier. He was knocked back a few steps before he slowly stabilized himself. The martial grand master dispersed the light barrier. He was not injured at all. He removed a jade pendant from his neck and handed it to the auctioneer. After that, he took his leave with the peak martial saint. The auctioneer received the jade pendant and said in a clear and resonant voice, "Earlier, everyone saw it for themselves." This jade pendant allowed the martial grand master to easily block the full-powered strike of a peak martial saint. Furthermore, it is not just a simple block. It can reflect a third of the force back to the enemy. According to the tests of our Linlang Pavilion, this secret treasure can block the full-powered strike of a peak medial grade martial king at best. The only flaw is that it can only be used once a day. Aside from that, there are no other flaws. The auction will begin now. The starting bid is 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Each bid must be no less than 2,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Lin Lang Pavilion's reputation had always been very good. Since the other party said that it could block the full-powered strike of a peak medial grade martial king, then it must be true. If that was the case, the use of this jade pendant was rather horrifying. Although it could only be used once a day, it could save one's life at the most crucial moment. It might even be able to turn the tables. This was because the light barrier could reflect the force of the attack. In a situation where the opponent did not know about it, it was a very good trump card. Such a secret treasure was very useful for cultivators. Everyone would encounter danger, it would increase their chances of survival. Lu Suifeng smiled and said, "This is a good thing. There are really many of them. If it does not exceed 100,000 spirit stones, I would want to buy it." Xiao Qin was very interested in this secret treasure as well. If it could block the attack of a peak medial grade martial king, then it would be very useful. 20,000. 35,000. 50,000. 80,000. The bidding for this jade pendant was even more intense than for the superior grade spirit stones. In just a moment, someone called out the price of 80,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Lu Suifeng muttered to himself, "It looks like people are afraid of death." Xiao Qin thought for a while and made his move at this moment. 100,000. Lu Suifeng was somewhat surprised. He said, "Yi Chen, you want to bid for this jade pendant as well? I thought you would not need it." In his opinion, Xiao Chen's movement technique was already very fast. Even if there was an opponent that he could not defeat, he could use his movement technique to escape. Rather than spending a large amount of spirit stones to buy a defensive secret treasure, he might as well wait a while and buy an offensive secret treasure. Xiao Qin smiled faintly and said, "If possible, I would like to obtain all 10 secret treasures. Furthermore, this jade pendant happens to be useful recently." After the price reached 100,000, the entire place fell silent. 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones was already a horrifying number. If anyone wanted to bid again, they would have to consider it carefully. 150,000. Right at this moment, a low and deep voice suddenly resounded, and it instantly raised the price by 50,000. It shocked everyone present in the surroundings. The auctioneer immediately grabbed the opportunity and said excitedly, 150,000 inferior grade spirit stones. A cultivator wearing black clothes is really generous. Is there a higher bid than 150,000? Xiao Qin was somewhat astonished. He looked through the window and discovered that the person who bid was a peak martial saint wearing black clothes and a cloak. Under the shadow of the cloak, no one could see his appearance clearly. He looked very mysterious. Xiao Qin thought for a while and continued to bid, 200,000. The auctioneer's mood was completely uplifted. The higher the bid, the more commission he would receive. He said excitedly, "Booth 18 bids 200,000. This cultivator in black clothes, are you going to continue bidding?" The cultivator in black clothes muttered to himself for a while and raised his head to look at Xiao Chen's booth. Xiao Qin looked down and saw a pair of green eyes. It was very strange. The cultivator in black clothes withdrew his gaze and waved his hand to indicate that he had given up. 200,000 was already a sky-high price. Even cultivators with large sects and clans behind them would find it difficult to take out such a sum. Finally, the auctioneer called out the hammer 3 times. Xiao Qin had successfully obtained the first secret treasure. Lu Suifeng said, 200,000 for a defensive secret treasure, is it worth it? Hey, Yi Chen, what's wrong? Are you regretting it? Ever since Xiao Qin saw that pair of green eyes, he had not recovered his wits. The shock that those eyes gave him was too great. It was like a demon had crawled out of hell. It was very strange. He had never seen anyone with green eyes before. Xiao Qin recovered his wits and said, 200,000 is worth it. It is the full-powered strike of a peak medial grade martial king. Did you forget who targeted us when we arrived? With this jade pendant, I will give that person a pleasant surprise. The second round of the auction started. Xiao Qin had already gotten some clues. The first and last items of every round were the most attractive. Indeed, it was as Xiao Qin had guessed. The auctioneer slowly took out the first item of the second round. He introduced it with a smile on his face. This is a bottle of quintessence gathering pills. There is a total of 20 of them. Below Martial King, they can increase the chances of advancing by 20%. No one in the Great Qin Nation can refine such a pill. Even in the Great Qin Nation, there is a limit to the number. The starting bid is still 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Chapter 277. In booth 9, a bright light flashed in Mu Qingshue's eyes. He clenched his fist and said indifferently, I finally got what I wanted. I must obtain this medicinal pill. A true treasure did not need much introduction. The price of the quintessence gathering pill quickly rose to the horrifying price of 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones. 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones was a dividing line. Only those who could afford it could afford it. Aside from martial kings, only the disciples of the big clans and sects could afford to pay such a price. Mu Qingxue said indifferently, 200,000. Mu Qingxue increased the bid by 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones in one go. The horrifying price shocked the cultivators who wanted to continue bidding. Even if they could take out 200,000 inferior grade spirit stones, they would not be able to be as calm as Mu Qingxue. It was clear that Mu Qingxue was determined to obtain it and would bid even higher. Booth 9. I seem to recall that Mu Qingxue entered booth 9. No wonder he is so rich and overbearing. As the first successor of the Night Spirit Palace and the strongest of the new generation, the resources that he can mobilize are not something that a regular person can compare to. The people who can compete with him will probably give up on the account of the Night Spirit Palace. Right, to prevent each other from raising the price. When that happens, everyone will be at a disadvantage. It is best to give each other some face. When the people below saw that no one made a bid and that the price had exceeded 200,000, they started to discuss it. The auctioneer on the platform could no longer remain calm. Even if this quintessence gathering pill was sold at its normal price, it would be worth 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Now, the price had only doubled. After deducting the channel fees, Lin Lang Pavilion would not be able to earn much. The auctioneer said loudly, only 200,000. This is a genuine quintessence gathering pill. You will not be able to buy it outside of Lin Lang Pavilion in the Great Qin Nation. 250,000. The auctioneer's eyes lit up. He laughed loudly and said, Booth 18 has made a bid. 250,000. The esteemed guest in booth 9, are you afraid to bid? The auctioneer's words were very provocative. At certain times, he could increase the anger of others. Most people would fall for it if they were not rational. A faint killing intent appeared in Mu Qingshue's eyes. He said in a cold voice, 300,000. Xiao Qin had come out this time for the sake of this quintessence gathering pill. Originally, he thought that he had brought 400,000 inferior grade spirit stones with him. He was confident that he would be able to obtain it. Who knew that someone like Qin Yaojin would appear and completely ruin his plans? Xiao Qin had to obtain this quintessence gathering pill. This quintessence gathering pill was very important to him. This quintessence Xiao Qin had to obtain. This quintessence gathering pill was very useful to him. Xiao Qin would be able to use medial grade spirit after medial grade martial spirit. He said without hesitation, 400,000. He said, mu thousand. Spirit. And said, Mu Qin have mu, and said, mu, he have. I have mu, I can. Mu, I have mu. I only have 5,000. 10 spirit. 10 spirit. Xiaochen 1000 Spirit. Spirit 1000, Xiaochen, with, Spirit was, Ling Chen, 500,000. Xiaochen's expression was calm. He said casually, 500,000. The entire hall was silent. No one had expected a bottle of quintessence gathering pill to reach such a high price. 500,000 inferior grade spirit stones. A regular martial saint would have to work hard for 50 to 60 years before they could obtain it. It was an astronomical figure. However, this person did not hesitate to spend it on a bottle of quintessence gathering pill. Booth 18. Why is it Booth 18 again? The person who won the first secret treasure seems to be this person as well. I wonder who this person is. He actually dares to snatch Mu Qingshue's things. There will be a good show to watch later. A person who can take out 700,000 inferior grade spirit stones is definitely not someone to be trifled with. There is no need to fear the Night Spirit Palace. Xiaochen made his move again. He immediately became the focal point of everyone's discussion. The auctioneer on the auction platform was very excited. His face was filled with an excited smile as he said, 500,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Is there anyone who intends to make a higher bid? The friend in booth 9, do you not want it anymore? Mu Qingshue's expression turned gloomy. He remained silent and clenched his right fist tightly. The other Night Spirit Palace disciples in the booth all felt a chill. They trembled in fear. They had never seen Mu Qingxue so angry before. After a while, Mu Qingxue relaxed his frown. He lay down gently on the round wooden chair. He shifted his center of gravity, causing the floor to sizzle. Then, he slowly closed his eyes. Mu Yanxue, who was familiar with Mu Qingshue's character, knew that he was truly angry and had a murderous intent. After calling out 3 times, no one answered, Xiaochen successfully put away the bottle of quintessence gathering pill. He revealed a faint smile on his face. Lu Suifeng said in astonishment, Xiaochen, where did you get so many inferior grade spirit stones? 500,000. Xiaochen smiled and said, I had a lot of high-rank demonic cores in the subspace. If I sold them all, they would be worth 200,000 inferior grade spirit stones. I can still afford it. Originally, Xiaochen planned to keep the demonic cores in the universe ring for himself. It looked like he could only use them here. No matter what, he could only use 7,000 of the 10,000 medial grade spirit stones. That was 700,000 inferior grade spirit stones. He had to keep the rest for himself. The second round of the auction continued. Xiaochen noticed that the items in this round were much more precious than the previous one. Unfortunately, the item he was waiting for did not appear. The atmosphere of the auction became increasingly lively. Many cultivators managed to buy the treasures that they wanted. Soon, the second secret treasure appeared. It looked like an ordinary pair of boots. However, after the demonstration, everyone discovered that it could increase the user's movement technique by close to 20%. This 20% was not to be underestimated. To martial masters and martial grand masters, 20% was only that much. However, to high-ranked cultivators, their speed was already very fast. If they increased it by 20%, their speed would be very horrifying. After the auctioneer found someone to demonstrate it, he smiled and said, I have given this pair of boots a nice-sounding name, Windwalk Boots. 20% increase in speed. Whether it is escaping or attacking, one can advance or retreat at will. Furthermore, there are no restrictions on the usage of these boots. It will only increase the exhaustion of essence. The starting bid is still 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones. There were simply too many good things. Xiaochen immediately took a fancy to the Windwalk boots. He calculated the spirit stones he had in his heart. However, he discovered that he did not have enough spirit stones. He spent 200,000 on the first secret treasure and 500,000 on the medicinal pills. That was 700,000. He originally had 1,200,000 inferior grade spirit stones. If he sold the demonic cores, he would be able to gather about 1,500,000. That was to say, he only had 800,000 inferior-grade spirit stones left. He still had 3,000 medial-grade spirit stones, so he only had 500,000 inferior-grade spirit stones left. Xiaochen thought to himself, if it exceeds 300,000 inferior-grade spirit stones, I will not buy it. I still have to save some money to purchase a lightning-attributed martial technique. As Xiaochen was thinking, the bidding price of the Windwalk boots had already reached 150,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. 200,000. At the crucial moment, Xiaochen made another move. He raised the bidding price by 50,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. The fiery atmosphere in the hall immediately turned silent. It is booth 19 again. How many spirit stones does this person have? Even a large clan would not be able to take out so many inferior-grade spirit stones in one go. He is really rich. Who is this person? The people on the floor discussed in soft voices. Occasionally, there would be people looking at Xiaochen. Xiaochen hid himself at the back, avoiding these gazes. 220,000. After a moment of silence in the silent hall, someone finally made a bid. However, it was only an increase of 20,000. Xiaochen did not hesitate to call out, 300,000. The auctioneer said excitedly, the guest in booth 18 bid 300,000. Is there anyone who wants a bid higher than 300,000? The person who made a bid earlier snorted coldly and did not make another bid. After that, no one made another bid. After 3 clangs of the hammer, Xiaochen successfully obtained this Windwalk boots. The third round of the auction began. Like before, the first item of each round was very eye-catching. However, Xiaochen felt helpless and did not compete. The following auctions continued. The items were all rather good. However, there was nothing that Xiaochen wanted, so he did not make a bid. Even when the third secret treasure was auctioned off, Xiaochen still did not make a bid. The people below heaved a sigh of relief. If Xiaochen won this secret treasure again, he would block everyone else's path. This might incur public anger. The auction continued. All sorts of secret manuals appeared. However, there was no high-ranked lightning-attributed secret manual that Xiaochen wanted. He could not help but feel bored. Suddenly, he frowned and raised his right hand, sending out a strand of purple thunder true fire. Pu Ci. In an instant, the purple fire pierced through the wooden door. There was a soft cry of pain coming from outside. At the same time that he made his move, Xiaochen sent out his spiritual sense at lightning speed. However, he did not find any traces of the person peeping at him. He only saw a trace of blood at the door. What a fast speed, Xiaochen thought to himself. This person's method of hiding his aura is also very profound. I wonder who it is. Lu Suifeng said in astonishment, someone is targeting us. Xiaochen nodded and said, go out and stay with the Yun clan's people first. I will go out alone later. Lu Suifeng knew that Xiaochen did not want him to be in danger. After warning Xiaochen to be careful, he quickly left booth 18. Following that, Xiaochen kept an eye out. He kept his spiritual sense out, monitoring everything in his surroundings. Suddenly, a pool of flowing water appeared on the floor of the booth that Chu Chaoyun was in. After a while, the water formed into a human figure. It was the girl who went out to gather information. The girl said in a melodious voice, I found the people in booth 8. They are the Shiha twin fiends. I overheard them. They are indeed preparing to make a move on you, senior brother. Chu Chaoyun smiled faintly and said, so, it is these 2 clowns. They are of no importance. Lyria, what's wrong with your hand? When Chu Chaoyun noticed a faint wound on the girl's arm, he could not help but feel suspicious. Lyria smiled and said, it's nothing, it's just a small injury. I was asking around for the person in booth 18 and he discovered me. Chapter 278. Chu Chaoyun was somewhat surprised. Lyria's martial spirit was rather special. Her method of hiding her aura was something that even a regular martial king would not be able to discover. The owner of booth 18 is the old friend that senior brother met in Liushang Pavilion. Chu Chaoyun said, "So, it is him. No wonder you were discovered. There is no need to bother about him for now. I have already obtained what I wanted. I can leave after the auction ends." Soon, the auction reached its final round. The auctioneer took out the first item of the 8th round and smiled. The next item is a lightning-attributed peak earth-ranked martial technique, Wukuei Saber Technique. According to legend, the Wukuei Saber is a divine tree born from lightning. In the ancient era, there was a strong cultivator who comprehended under the Wukuei tree. From there, he created the Wukuei Saber Technique. Of course, the one in my hands is not the true ancient copy. It is just a martial technique that was completed using the incomplete Wukuei Saber Technique. Although it does not have the might of the legends, it is considered a peak earth-ranked saber technique. To all the bladesmen here, this is a rare martial technique. The starting bid is still 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. He had finally found what he had been waiting for. He did not hesitate to call out, 50,000. The person from booth 18 made a move again. This time, he actually wants this saber technique. Fortunately, I do not need it. Haha, I do not need it either. Otherwise, I would not be able to outbid him. Damn it, I was just looking for a lightning-attributed saber technique. There is no hope now. I can't be bothered to bid anymore. I definitely cannot outbid this person. Even if I bid, it would be pointless. Seeing that no one made a bid in the noisy hall, Xiaoqin did not expect that he could achieve such an effect. When the auctioneer saw this, he became very anxious. Normally, this peak earth-ranked martial technique would fetch at least 200,000 spirit stones. Now, no one made a bid at 50,000. The auctioneer called out a few more times, but no one made a bid. This is a great loss. The auctioneer cursed Xiaoqin in his heart. In the end, he could only say helplessly, 50,000 inferior grade spirit stones. This martial technique belongs to booth 18. Xiaoqin revealed a faint smile and said, "Looks like having too much money can scare people to death. This is a bargain for me." Xiaoqin had finally obtained what he had been waiting for. He had basically achieved his goal in this auction. However, as for the other 8 secret treasures, he had no choice but to take a look. After 4 hours, the auction came to an end. Lin Lang Pavilion sent someone to deliver the items that Xiaoqin had bid for to the private room. Lin Lang Pavilion had a professional appraiser. Xiaoqin's high-ranked demonic cores were sold without a hitch. After selling the demon cores, Xiaoqin started to pay the bill. A bottle of quintessence gathering pills, 2 secret treasures, and a lightning-attributed martial technique, a total of 1,050,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Xiaoqin still had more than 4,000 medial grade spirit stones left. Xiaoqin placed the items in the universe ring and pushed open the door to the private room. He immediately felt an intense killing intent. He smiled faintly and ignored it. Xiaoqin walked out of the door. When Mu Qingxue saw Xiaoqin leave, he revealed a faint smile on his handsome face as he held the holy weapon, Beauty Under the Moonlight. He said, "So, it is him." In the depths of Mu Qingxue's right eye, there was a simple and unadorned bronze mirror spinning rapidly. It clearly saw through Xiaoqin's disguise. Not long after Xiaoqin left Linlang Pavilion, he was immediately blocked by Mu Qingxue and the others on the street. Mu Qingxue had a cold smile on his handsome face. It made his exquisite face look even more enchanting. He looked at Xiaoqin and said indifferently, "I seem to remember that we met outside Yunyang City." Xiaoqin had a good memory. He was very familiar with this person. He nodded and said, "We have indeed met before. However, you did not block me today just to say that, right?" Mu Qingxue did not beat around the bush and said directly, "Give me 10 quintessence-gathering pills. I will give you 100,000 inferior-grade spirit stones." Xiao Qin had spent 500,000 inferior-grade spirit stones to buy quintessence-gathering pills. However, there were only 20 of them. 10 of them, even if he bought them at normal cost, would cost 25 inferior-grade spirit stones. However, Mu Qingxue was only willing to pay 100,000. This was no different from daylight robbery. Xiao Qin shook his head and said, "Sorry, this is not for sale. Please move aside, I still have matters to attend to." "Who?" Mu Qingxue's right hand moved with a "so" sound. He casually placed it on Xiao Chen's shoulder and said softly, "Did I say you can leave? You dare to snatch something that I, Mu Qingxue, have set my eyes on. I will say it again, are you selling or not?" Mu Qingxue's voice was very soft, but it did not contain any emotions. It was incomparably cold and contained a boundless killing intent. A cold light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. He replied coldly, "Let go, I am not familiar with you." Cassier. Right after Xiao Chen spoke, he placed his right hand on the saber hilt at lightning speed. He immediately executed the rushing thunder saber techniques, drawing the saber. Mu Qingxue's reaction was not slower than Xiao Chen's. In fact, he was even faster. By the time Xiao Chen's right hand touched the saber hilt, Mu Qingxue had already unsheathed his sword. Bang! 2 dazzling lights flashed in the air. The saber and sword clashed in the air, giving off a melodious clang. A strong wind blew on the street. Xiao Chen's saber arrived first despite being launched later. Although he was slower than his opponent, he used the technique of drawing the saber to increase his speed. The two of them each took 5 steps back. A huge force rebounded from the saber to their arms. This caused Xiao Chen's right hand, which was holding the saber, to go numb. He could not help but become more cautious. Dark clouds suddenly gathered in the clear sky. From time to time, muffled sounds of thunder could be heard from the rolling clouds. Mu Qingxue looked at the dark clouds in the sky and said indifferently, "Small perfection state of thunder. No wonder you dare to make a move against me. Unfortunately, it is only small perfection." Hu Qi. Suddenly, a strong wind blew behind Mu Qingxue. Occasionally, there would be lightning tearing through the sky. The other Night Spirit Palace disciples quickly moved to the side. "This is First Senior Brother's state of wind and thunder. This fellow is dead for sure," one of the Night Spirit Palace disciples who was injured by Xiao Qin said excitedly. Mu Yanxue stood quietly at the side, remaining silent. She did not express her opinion. To her, this was a good opportunity to observe Mu Qingxue's true strength. The clouds churned in the sky, the strong wind howled, and lightning flashed. The commotion was huge, attracting the attention of almost all the pedestrians on the street. Xiao Chen's gaze was calm as water. Mu Qingxue was able to perfectly merge the two states of wind and thunder. He was truly worthy of being the top expert of the Night Spirit Palace. Hu Qi. Mu Qingxue pushed off the ground and a strong wind blew for no reason. Mu Qingxue's body soared into the air. The sword in his hand, which was as gentle as moonlight, contained a boundless killing intent as it stabbed at Xiao Qin. A cold light flashed on the sword and a horrifying bolt of lightning appeared in the strong wind. Before the sword arrived, the bolt of lightning had already arrived before Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art. His figure flashed on the ground, creating a purple arc. He dodged the lightning bolt before it arrived. Boom! The lightning bolt blasted a large hole in the place where Xiao Qin was originally standing. It kicked up a lot of dust, but the strong wind immediately blew it away. The instant the strong wind scattered, Xiao Chen's figure appeared behind Mu Qingxue. There was a loud crack of thunder in the sky. Xiao Qin carried the surging momentum of thunder as he hacked at Mu Qingxue with the lunar shadow saber. Mu Qingxue flicked his wrist and his sword immediately blocked Xiao Chen's attack. Bang! 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 The two of them attacked very quickly in the air. When the saber and sword clashed, thunder and lightning appeared continuously. It was so loud that it hurt the eardrums of everyone present. Shockwaves that could be seen with the naked eye spread out from the two of them. When the shockwaves spread out, some of the buildings on the street were immediately crushed into dust. There was an increasing amount of dust in the strong wind. The surrounding people could no longer see the situation clearly. They could only guess the intensity of the battle from the incessant shouts. A light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. He found an opportunity and immediately executed the roaming dragon's 9 transformations and the clear wind chop. Amidst the strong wind and lightning, Xiao Chen turned into 9 figures. There were 9 gentle breezes blowing on each figure. In an instant, Xiao Chen's killing chi suddenly disappeared amidst the intense battle. It was very strange. Mu Qingxue smiled faintly and said, Qing Yun Peak secret technique, clear wind chop. You can only see the cool breeze and not the saber. It is just an insignificant skill. The holy weapon, beauty under the moonlight, gave off a magnificent glow. There was a gentle golden moonlight on the sword. Amidst the blurry moonlight, there seemed to be a girl chanting softly. As the girl chanted softly, the surrounding space rippled like countless waves on the surface of water. Mu Qingxue's figure instantly became very blurry. Xiao Chen was startled. This was the Tao of the holy weapon. Mu Qingxue used the holy weapon to temporarily change the laws of this space. So, the 9 figures merged into one in the air and passed through Murong Shue's blurry figure. However, Mu Qingxue's figure appeared in front of Xiao Chen like a mirror image. Xiao Chen had a mocking smile as he looked at Xiao Chen. Then, he quickly flew towards Mu Qingxue. However, at this moment, the distance between him and Mu Qingxue seemed like an eternity. No matter how Xiao Chen moved, Mu Qingxue's figure was always 10 meters in front of him. To Xiao Chen, 10 meters was merely a step. However, this step was a step. Although Xiao Chen was astonished, he did not panic too much. He maintained his composure. Suddenly, Xiao Chen stopped and used his spiritual sense to protect his body. Then, he slowly descended. Even so, Mu Qingxue's figure remained 10 meters away from him, slowly descending with him. Pu Si. A resplendent beam of moonlight suddenly shone on Xiao Chen's eyes. The melodious voice of a girl rang in Xiao Chen's ears. The moonlight blurred Xiao Chen's vision. The girl's voice interfered with Xiao Chen's hearing. Space started to ripple rapidly. Instantly, Xiao Chen's 5 senses were all gone. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and suddenly grasped the air with his left hand, grabbing the incoming sword blade. Mu Qingxue's face was filled with astonishment. He said, "That's impossible. Your 5 senses are all gone. How can you know where I am attacking?" Xiao Chen remained silent. The lunar shadow saber flickered with a purple light as he chopped at Mu Qingxue's body. Chapter 279. The sword in Mu Qingxue's hand was firmly grasped, and he was unable to dodge this strike. His body turned into gentle moonlight as he was struck by the saber, disappearing into the air. The strange space disappeared, and the strong wind dissipated. Mu Qingxue landed on the ground with a pale complexion. The small world he created using his holy weapon had been destroyed by Xiao Chen, and he had suffered quite a bit of backlash. After suffering a loss at the hands of Xiao Chen in front of so many people, Mu Qingxue's face was very gloomy. Die! 9 flashes sword! Mu Qingxue roared angrily, and the strong wind and lightning appeared again. The holy weapon, Moonlight Beauty, reappeared in his hand. Using the force of the strong wind, he quickly appeared in front of Xiao Chen. Layers of golden light appeared on the blade of the sword, changing continuously. Xiao Chen was surrounded by sword images. There was clearly only one strike, but it came from 9 different directions. It made it hard to tell if it was the real body or an illusion, or if it was all the real body. Xiao Chen shouted, "Lone Peak Fatal Blow." An illusion of a mountain rose from the ground. In the past, the illusion of a mountain would descend from the sky. However, in order to deal with the current situation, Xiaoqin used this move in reverse. Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations. The instant the Lone Peak fatal blow was executed, Xiaoqin quickly circulated his essence and executed the Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations in an extremely short period of time. In an instant, the illusion of 9 mountains appeared in the sky. The mountains overlapped, and it was impossible to tell which was the real one. Dang! 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 9 metallic clangs rang out at the same time. In the next moment, the figures of the mountains and Mu Qingxue merged together. The two of them shouted loudly, and their auras were incomparably ferocious as they exchanged another move. 2 bolts of lightning streaked across the sky at the same time, illuminating the gloomy sky like the sun. After a while, there were 2 roars of thunder, and the two of them retreated 9 steps. Ka xie. Mu Qingxue sheathed his sword, and the beauty of the moonlight beauty immediately disappeared. He said indifferently, "You may leave." Xiao Chen's expression remained incomparably calm, there were no fluctuations at all. He sheathed the lunar shadow saber and slowly walked forward. The two of them were equally matched. If they didn't bring out their true abilities, they wouldn't be able to determine the victor even after exchanging 100 blows. It was obvious that the two of them would not use their trump cards in public. Doing so would only expose some of their trump cards. Who exactly is this person? He actually managed to fight Mu Qingxue to a draw. Since when did such a young expert appear in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? I remember now. 3 days ago, he was also the one who injured the second son of the Shi family. Even the 4th elder of the Shi family couldn't do anything to him. So it's him. He's really daring with so many people. Mu Qingxue and the Shi clan are not to be trifled with. He just used the Qingyun secret technique. He must be from Qingyun Peak. He must be a disciple of Qingyun Peak. However, I heard that Qingfeng has been in decline for many years. However, this person is really low profile. He did not even leave behind a name. He managed to fight to a draw with Mu Qingxue. At the very least, he will be famous in the Shihe province. When the surrounding cultivators saw that Xiao Chen was not at a disadvantage against Mu Qingxue, they were all astonished. A Night Spirit Palace disciple walked over to Mu Qingxue's side. He asked in confusion, "First senior brother, why did you let him go?" In the boundless void in the depths of Mu Qingxue's right eye, the copper mirror shone with a faint light. It was as though it could see through everything in the world. Xiao Chen's true appearance was imprinted on the copper mirror. Mu Qingxue memorized this appearance in his heart. A murderous intent appeared in his eyes as he smiled faintly. The higher a person flies, the more painful the fall will be. Let him fly for a while longer. In the Yun residence of Shihe City, after Xiao Chen ended his fight with Mu Qingxue, he immediately rushed to the Yun residence to look for Lu Suifeng. Xiao Chen said, "Suifeng, you should go back alone this time. Go through the Devil Savannah with the Yun residence's merchant group. There should not be any danger." Lu Suifeng felt it was strange, so he asked, "Why? Is there something else?" Xiao Chen looked up at the boundless sky. During his fight with Mu Qingxue earlier, he felt that indistinct killing intent again. This proved that the mysterious cultivator who followed the two of them through the Devil Savannah was still very patient. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and nodded, "That person's target is me. There should be no problem for you to go alone. I have decided to stay with the Yun clan for a while longer." Lu Suifeng thought for a while and said, "In that case, be careful. When necessary, don't go all out." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "I do not fear this person at all. I just want to cultivate for a while longer and capture him completely. I just want to know who the person behind him is." Lu Suifeng did not say anything more. After he communicated with the Yun clan, he left Shihe City with the Yun clan's merchant group in the afternoon. As for Xiao Chen, he asked for a quiet courtyard from the Yun clan. This was something that Yun Yuji could not ask for more. Along the way, Yun Yuji had heard about the fight between Xiao Chen and Mu Qingxue. Being able to fight Mu Qingxue to a draw made him value Xiao Chen's potential even more. Late at night, the full moon hung quietly in the sky like a plate. In the bedroom, Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the bed. He took out 2 quintessence-gathering pills and poured them out. When a cultivator below martial monarch consumed the quintessence-gathering pill, their chances of breaking through would increase by at least 20%. The lower their cultivation, the higher the chances. Right now, Xiao Chen was only an inferior-grade martial saint. 1 quintessence-gathering pill could increase his chances of breaking through by 40%. 2 would be 80%. In addition to his own accumulations, breaking through to medial-grade martial saint should not be a problem. Xiao Chen placed the 2 quintessence-gathering pills in his mouth. The pills melted in his mouth and turned into a refreshing liquid. It flowed down his throat and into his blood vessels, merging with his blood. Xiao Chen slowly circulated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation to speed up the absorption of the quintessence. After the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation completed a small cycle, he completely absorbed the medicinal energy of the 2 quintessence-gathering pills. Bang! In the Qi whirlpool in his dantian, Xiao Chen felt a strong energy gush out. The crystalline purple Qi whirlpool started spinning frantically. Is this the strength of the quintessence-gathering pill? Xiao Chen thought to himself, how horrifying. This is almost as much energy as I can absorb in a month. Although the strong energy was very berserk, it was maintained at a certain level. It continuously tested the limits of what Xiao Chen could endure. This way, it ensured that Xiao Chen could break through safely. It was like a bottle containing water. Xiao Chen's body was the bottle and the essence in his body was the water in the bottle. If Xiao Chen wanted to break through, he had to increase the volume and quality of the water, making the bottle bigger. This was a very dangerous process. However, the quintessence-gathering pill gave Xiao Chen's energy a formless and gentle barrier. It could ensure that the bottle would not be forcefully broken by Xiao Chen. With the protection of the quintessence-gathering pill, Xiao Chen circulated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation without any worries. The pure lightning-attributed essence of heaven and earth flowed into Xiao Chen's body like water. The room was filled with a purple light. Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as water, like an ancient well. 1 great cycle passed, 2 great cycles passed. In the end, the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation circulated a total of 72 great cycles. Bang! A crisp sound came from Xiao Chen's body. The original bottle suddenly shattered. After a while, it formed a new bottle. The quantity and quality of the essence in the bottle had increased by 20%. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and 2 purple lights flashed. He looked at the remnant purple energy in the room and said excitedly, I did it. It was worth spending so many spirit stones to buy the quintessence-gathering pill. It is really effective. Hu Qi. Xiao Chen waved his hand and the remnant lightning-attributed energy in the room immediately formed a purple whirlpool. With a shua sound, it all flew into Xiao Chen's right hand. Xiao Chen's right hand immediately turned crystal clear, giving off the color of glass. With a thought, a strand of purple flame appeared on Xiao Chen's index finger, spinning continuously. So. Xiao Chen flicked his finger gently and the purple flame crashed into the wooden table in the room. The wooden table did not give off any sound and immediately turned into a pile of dust. Xiao Chen got up and muttered, now that I am a medial-grade martial saint, even a regular inferior-grade martial saint would not dare to receive a casual strike from the Purple Thunder True Fire. This can be considered one of my trump cards. I should go out and test out the magic treasures that I obtained from the auction first. Later, when my essence is completely stable, I can use the medial-grade spirit stones. When Xiao Chen pushed open the door, sunlight immediately shone in. He squinted his eyes and said softly, it is actually noon already. Indeed, there is no concept of time when cultivating. Xiao Chen shook his head and went out to wash up. Then, he entered the courtyard feeling refreshed. He took out the windwalk shoes from the universe ring and put them on. The instant Xiao Chen put on the windwalk shoes, he immediately felt a strange energy flow through the meridians in his feet and quickly connected with his mind. With a thought, he could use the windwalk shoes immediately. Looking at the windwalk shoes, Xiao Chen smiled gently. I did not expect a complete secret treasure to be so convenient to use. The formation markings in it are definitely not damaged at all. Let's not think about this for now. Let's test out the speed of the windwalk shoes first. Let's see how fast it is. Xiao Chen looked around the courtyard and quickly circulated the essence in his body for the blue dragon cloud soaring art. In the next instant, he turned into a beam of purple light and ran quickly around the courtyard. Pu Ci. Pu Ci. Xiao Chen raised his speed to the limits of his body. At this moment, his speed was infinitely close to the speed of sound. His body gave off an ear-piercing sound of friction with the air. The air was like a calm surface of water. With the sound of the explosion, the surface of the water rippled continuously, forming a horrifying shockwave. Immediately, a strong wind blew in the courtyard. The sand billowed and the small trees fell to the side. It looked like they would be uprooted at any moment. Xiao Chen thought to himself, the blue dragon cloud soaring art is the exclusive movement technique of the blue dragon martial spirit. It is at least medial grade heaven ranked. I cultivated it to small perfection long ago. Unfortunately, I could not break through the bottleneck after that. As a result, my speed has been stuck in the middle, unable to reach the speed of sound. Let's see if the speed of the windwalk shoes can help me make a breakthrough. With a thought, the formation markings in the windwalk shoes immediately activated. In the next moment, Xiao Chen felt his body lighten. The ear-piercing sound of the explosion disappeared and the strong wind in the courtyard subsided. Chapter 280. Everywhere Xiao Chen passed, he left behind afterimages. After a long time, the afterimages slowly disappeared. I really reached the speed of sound. Xiao Chen stopped walking and revealed a joyful smile. After reaching the speed of sound, his body had already started to merge with the air. The friction created would naturally disappear into the wind, and there would not be any intense sonic booms. Xiao Chen withdrew his smile and said, most cultivators can only reach the speed of sound after they advance to Martial King. These windwalk shoes allow me to reach the speed of sound when I am a medial grade martial saint. The 200,000 spirit stones were not spent in vain. If Murong Chang's state of wind did not improve further, then my speed would have already surpassed his. At the very least, I would not be at a disadvantage against him in terms of speed. Without wasting any time, Xiao Chen continued to test how long his essence could last if he used the windwalk shoes at full power. After 2 hours, Xiao Chen looked at the remaining half of his essence. He said, it looks like there should be no problem using it for 4 hours. However, when I fight, I will exhaust more essence. I will only be able to use it for about 3 hours. However, that is already pretty good. Xiao Chen took out 2 inferior-grade spirit stones and held one in each hand. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and started to recover his essence. After 1 hour, the spirit stones lost their luster and Xiao Chen's essence was replenished. Only then did he slowly stand up. When Xiao Chen looked at the courtyard gates, he was surprised to discover that Yun Kursen had arrived at some point in time. He quickly got up and went over, Senior Sister Yun, are you looking for me? A strange look flashed in Yun Kursen's calm eyes. She said, Yi Chen, you broke through again. Xiao Chen nodded and smiled, and, this is all thanks to the quintessence gathering pill. It probably saved me 2 months of time. Even without the quintessence gathering pill, with Xiao Chen's talent and the cultivation speed of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, Xiao Chen would not be stuck at peak inferior grade martial saint for long. However, being able to save 2 months was also a great help to Xiao Chen. What he lacked the most now was time. Yun Kursen's expression turned calm once more. She revealed a smile on her delicate face and said, Congratulations, I was just passing by to see you. Since you are cultivating, I will not disturb you anymore. Goodbye. Wait a moment. Xiao Qin stopped Yun Kursen. Yun Kursen turned around and found it strange. She asked, is something the matter? Xiao Qin nodded, good, I want you to help me test the defensive strength of my artifact. Use your strongest move to attack me. That jade pendant was not like the windwalk boots, it was a defensive secret treasure. Xiao Qin would definitely not be able to test it himself, so he would have to find someone to help him. Yun Kursen teased, so, you are looking for me to do hard labor. I was wondering what it was. You are looking for me to do hard labor for free. Xiao Qin could not help but laugh hoarsely. He discovered that after he got to know Yun Kursen, she was not as indifferent as she appeared. She had a cute and mischievous side to her. However, this Yun Kursen was more genuine. Xiao Qin was easier to get along with. He said, how about one quintessence gathering pill? Yun Kursen burst out laughing. Her delicate face looked like an orchid. She said, I was just teasing you. Prepare yourself. I heard that it can block the strike of a peak medial grade martial king. I can only do my best. Xiao Qin took out the jade pendant and placed it on his chest. He immediately felt a cooling sensation. Like the windwalk boots, the formation markings in it instantly connected to Xiao Qin's mind. It was very convenient to operate. After he got used to it, Xiao Qin had a cautious expression as he said, come on, I'm ready. Yun Kursen had a calm expression. Soon, she entered a state of mind as calm as still water. She slowly drew the heaven-ranked roaming dragon saber. The dazzling saber gave off a bright light under the sunlight. Her aura started to gather quickly. Her calm gaze became as sharp as a saber light. The saber in her hand started to tremble slowly. The sound of the saber trembling grew louder and louder. It reverberated endlessly in the surroundings. Formless ripples spread out in the air, creating a strong wind. Boom! The unending sounds suddenly merged together and turned into a loud sound rushing to the 9 heavens. The sound dispersed a large patch of clouds in the sky. Without the clouds blocking the sunlight, it was so dazzling that it made one's eyes hurt. Yun Kursen's aura finally reached its peak. It turned into a sharp saber and shot at Xiao Qin. Her figure followed this aura in the air and headed for Xiao Qin. She actually did not show any mercy, Xiao Qin thought to himself as he watched Yun Kursen unleash her peak attack. With a thought, a transparent barrier enveloped Xiao Qin. Bang! When the heaven-ranked spirit weapon struck the barrier, it gave off a loud sound. The surface of the barrier rippled like water. Xiao Qin, who was within the barrier, felt a huge force. He took 2 steps back, but he did not suffer any injuries. On the contrary, Yun Kursen was knocked back by the rebound force. Her complexion was very pale, without any color of blood. Xiao Qin quickly retracted the barrier and walked over quickly. He asked worriedly, are you alright? It is just a test, there is no need to go all out. Yun Kursen did not answer Xiao Qin's question immediately. She was stabilizing the chaotic essence and surging qi and blood in her body. After a while, Yun Kursen's complexion slowly recovered. She revealed a smile on her delicate face and said, it's fine. Since it is a test, I have to do my best. That way, you won't have to worry too much when you fight with others in the future. Yun Kursen paused for a while before she said, I have a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. When I execute the Heavenly Melody Saber technique, my full power strike is equal to an inferior grade martial king. This barrier did not show any signs of shattering under my full power strike. It should be able to block the full power strike of a medial grade martial king. A heaven-ranked spirit weapon could raise Yun Kursen's attack power by 50%. Furthermore, she had a saber technique that could raise her attack power. Yun Kursen's attack power was indeed equal to an inferior grade martial king's. Xiao Qin took out a quintessence gathering pill and tossed it to Yun Kursen, many thanks. Yun Kursen stretched out her hand and caught the quintessence gathering pill. She smiled faintly and said, I only found out today that my full power strike is so valuable. It can be exchanged for a quintessence gathering pill worth close to 30,000 inferior grade spirit stones. It looks like when I have time, I have to come here more often. In a few days, I will be rich. Xiaochen blushed with shame in his heart. He smiled gently and said, in that case, I would become a pauper. The two of them smiled at each other and chatted for a while. Finally, because someone from the Yun clan came to summon Yun Kursen, they ended their conversation. After Yun Kursen left, Xiaochen tried to use the jade pendant on his chest. However, there was no reaction. He could not make contact with it. It looked like it was as Linlang Pavilion said, it could only be used once a day. After resting for a while, Xiaochen took out some dry rations from the universe ring to eat. After a while, he took out the lightning-attributed high-ranked martial technique, Wukuei Saber Technique. The Wukuei Saber Technique had a total of 9 moves. It was a typical lightning-attributed martial technique. Its original form was an incomplete heaven-ranked martial technique from the ancient era. Later, it was patched up and its might was much weaker than the original. Many of the martial techniques in the Sky Martial Continent were actually derived from the ancient martial techniques. Only a small portion were created by the later generations. Patching up an ancient martial technique and adding in one's own insights and viewpoints was also a type of martial technique. However, it was much rarer than the previous 2 types. The reason was none other than the incomplete martial technique. It was because the martial technique that was patched up would definitely be incomplete. Comprehending an incomplete ancient martial technique was much more difficult than deriving or creating one's own insights. Furthermore, adding in one's own viewpoint and merging it with the viewpoints of an old friend was even more difficult. These 2 reasons caused this type of martial technique to be very rare. Under the blazing sun, Xiaochen carefully looked at the Wukuei Saber Technique. With just one glance, he was deeply immersed in it. He only managed to finish reading it when it was dusk. Closing the book, Xiaochen felt many emotions in his heart. He muttered, the person who edited this book is truly a genius. Not only did he completely comprehend the thoughts of the ancients, he even corrected a few mistakes. He merged his own comprehension with the wisdom of the ancients, forming a new fusion. If this person had not obtained an incomplete copy, the might of this new Wukuei Saber technique would not be any weaker than the ancients. The instant he closed the book, Xiaochen's gaze inadvertently landed on a line of blurry words on the last page of the book. That line of words was written in the ancient era, which was the traditional Chinese characters of Earth. Because the words were blurry and it was traditional Chinese characters, most people would not notice it. Xiaochen read it out softly. The original work was not detailed. Sang Mu revised it in the year 689 of the Great Qin era. If there are any inadequacies, please correct me. Thunder King Sang Mu. After reading to the end, Xiaochen was completely stunned. The person who edited this secret manual was actually the Thunder King Sang Mu. If he remembered correctly, the Thunder King was only 20 years old in the year 689 of the Great Qin era. He already had such a horrifying talent at the age of 20, accomplishing something that others could not do in 100 years. What kind of person was the Thunder King of 1,000 years ago? Xiaochen's thoughts wandered. He thought about the time he met this person. Back then, when the Thunder King taught him the Battle Sage Origins changing character formula, he only said one sentence, one move to break 10,000 techniques, one chi to shake the world. Unfortunately, Xiaochen's talent was insufficient. Even now, he was still confused about this sentence. He did not understand it at all. As a result, when he used the Battle Sage Origins to imitate a martial technique, there were too many flaws. Thinking about the Thunder King, Xiaochen remembered that promise again. Don't let her cry. Xiaochen's gaze fell on the lunar shadow saber. He nodded his head solemnly in his heart. Recollecting his thoughts, Xiaochen placed the Wukuei Saber technique into the universe ring and prepared to practice the Wukuei Saber technique. The Wukuei Saber technique had a total of 9 moves. The first 3 moves were the foundational saber techniques, the foundation of the Wukuei Saber technique. If he wanted to practice the last 6 moves, he had to completely comprehend the first few foundational saber techniques. The 4th to 6th moves were the sure kill moves. After executing them, every move could force the opponent into a desperate situation. The 7th to 9th moves were the sure kill moves. As the name implied, sure kill meant that the moment the move was executed, it could kill the opponent for sure. Of course, this was just a saying. The so-called sure kill did not mean that the opponent would definitely die when the move was executed. It was just a concept. Xiaochen placed his right hand on the saber hilt and closed his eyes. His mind was at peace as he entered into a state of meditation. After an unknown amount of time, night fell quietly. There was no moonlight tonight. The courtyard was pitch black, one could not even see their fingers if they stretched out their hands. The courtyard was completely silent. Chapter 281. Glittering Wukue. Suddenly, Xiaochen opened his eyes and waved his right hand. The snow-white lunar shadow saber flashed with a dazzling light in the dark night. Xiaochen executed the first move of the Wukue saber technique. A purple branch of the ancient divine Wukue tree appeared from nowhere. It turned into saber chi and headed for a small tree in the courtyard. It was as fast as lightning. The 5-meter-tall tree was immediately chopped into pieces, which danced in the air in the small courtyard. Wukue transforms to chi. Xiaochen executed the second move of the Wukue saber technique. Instantly, the entire figure of the divine Wukue tree appeared. It turned into dozens of sharp purple saber chi and turned the tree fragments in the air into dust. Chi breaks Wukue. Xiaochen shouted and executed the third move of the Wukue saber technique. Instantly, the purple saber chi in the air gathered together and formed an extremely sharp saber chi. Under Xiaochen's command, the sharp saber chi entered the ground with a schwa sound. A hole as thick as an index finger immediately appeared in the ground. This strand of saber chi was incredibly dense. There were no cracks on the sides of the hole, it was smooth and glossy. It was not inferior to the saber chi of a regular peak superior grade martial saint. Ka Xie. Xiaochen withdrew his saber and stood upright. When he saw the scene in the courtyard, he revealed a faint smile. The foundational moves of the Wukue saber technique were much stronger than the first 10 moves of the Lingyun saber technique. Of course, this did not mean that the Lingyun saber technique was inferior to the Wukue saber technique. The Lingyun saber technique was also a peak earth-ranked saber technique. If there was a person who could perfectly merge the state of mountains and clouds, it would be comparable to the Wukue saber technique. It could only be said that the Wukue saber technique was more suitable for Xiaochen. In his hands, it was much stronger than the Lingyun saber technique. Because he was in the Yun clan, he did not dare to cause too much of a commotion. When Xiaochen demonstrated these 3 moves, he did not use the state of thunder. He only used 10% of his essence. It was easy to imagine how powerful these 3 moves would be if they were infused with the small perfection state of thunder and unleashed all of their essence. Xiaochen once again comprehended the concepts of these 3 moves. After a while, he continued to practice these 3 moves. If he did not practice these 3 moves to the great accomplishment stage, Xiaochen did not intend to practice the remaining 6 moves. The foundation was the foundation, and it had to be firmly laid. At midnight, Xiaochen stopped practicing his saber and entered his bedroom. He took out a medial-grade spirit stone from his universe ring and prepared to use it to cultivate. Xiaochen sat cross-legged on the bed and held the spirit stone in his right hand. He closed his eyes and slowly circulated the purple thunder divine incantation. Boom! The purple thunder divine incantation did not give Xiaochen much time to prepare. The instant he circulated the purple thunder divine incantation, the vast essence in the medial-grade spirit stone surged into his meridians like a river. The terrifying Yuan Qi immediately filled up Xiaochen's meridians and rampaged through them. Like a wild horse. Xiaochen frowned, he felt some pain. He calmed himself down and did his best to control this surging spiritual energy. After a long time, after much effort, Xiaochen finally managed to tame this wild horse, slowly making it docile. After a while, he successfully circulated the spirit stone in a minor cycle and poured it into the purple qi whirlpool. Dee-da! Dee-da! The purple qi whirlpool spun rapidly. Drops of crystalline essence liquid fell quickly and immediately replenished a quarter of Xiaochen's essence. Xiaochen guarded his mind and continued to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. The spiritual energy in the medial grade spirit stone flowed in continuously. He circulated it for 5 major cycles before he completely absorbed all the spiritual energy. The purple qi whirlpool was larger than before. Its color was also deeper. The purple thunder divine incantation circulated another cycle. Xiaochen finally had complete control over the spirit stone in the medial grade spirit stone. After he stopped cultivating, Xiaochen opened his eyes and tossed away the medial grade spirit stone that had lost its luster. He said indifferently, 1 medial grade spirit stone is equivalent to half a month of my bitter cultivation. No wonder medial grade spirit stones are so expensive. During the days in the Yun residence, Xiaochen practiced his saber techniques during the day and used the medial grade spirit stone to raise his cultivation at night. Yun Kursen would come by almost every day. Aside from chatting, she would also exchange pointers with Xiaochen. This was exactly what Xiaochen wished for. Coincidentally, he needed someone to exchange moves with the Wukuei saber technique that he practiced. After exchanging pointers, the two of them would comment on each other's martial techniques. What surprised Xiaochen was that Yun Kursen's attainments in the saber technique were exceptionally deep. Her unique understanding of the Wukuei saber technique was very helpful to Xiaochen. As the two of them discussed it together, Xiaochen's progress in the Wukuei saber technique was very fast. In 7 days, Xiaochen practiced the first 3 moves to great perfection. Although there was still a long way to go before he reached consummation, he could feel at ease practicing the remaining 4 to 6 killing moves. Just like this, another half a month passed. Xiaochen practiced the 3 killing moves to the peak of small perfection. Its might was much stronger than Xiaochen had imagined. If he combined it with the state of thunder, it would be comparable to the Lingyun saber technique's everlasting startling cloud and twisting road around peak. As for the remaining 3 killing moves, their might would be incomparable. After more than 20 days, Xiaochen had exhausted a total of 30 medial grade spirit stones. The amount of essence his body could store increased every day. In less than a month, Xiaochen's cultivation had already stabilized at the peak of early medial grade martial saint. On this particular day, Xiaochen finished practicing the Wukuei saber technique. He looked at the blazing sun above him and wiped the sweat off his forehead. He said indifferently, "It is time to leave. I hope that person has not left yet. Otherwise, all my efforts would have been wasted." Outside the courtyard, Yun Kursen held a flask of wine and 2 wine cups in her hands. She slowly walked in and sat at the stone table. She filled up the wine cups and smiled faintly, "Here's to you." Xiaochen smiled faintly and sat down. He picked up the wine cup and drained it in one go. He said, "Strange, how did you know I was leaving today?" Yun Kursen filled up Xiaochen's cup again and said, "I said it long ago, my judgment of people is very accurate. When I saw your expression yesterday, there was something wrong." Xiaochen drank another cup and said, "That's right, when are you preparing to return to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion?" When Yun Kursen heard this, an undetectable desolation flashed in her calm eyes. She took a sip of wine and said, "I will probably not go there often in the future. I am now the successor of the Yun clan. My focus will be on the Yun clan." Xiaochen noticed the desolation in Yun Kursen's tone. He thought of something and asked, "That's right, there is something I have always wanted to ask you. Why is a girl like you so interested in saber techniques? Furthermore, your attainments in saber techniques are so deep." Xiaochen's question was rather abrupt. However, it was the truth. In the Tianwu continent, when a girl practiced martial arts, their first choice of weapon was the sword. This was easy to understand. The elegance and carefreeness of the sword suited a girl's temperament. That was why there were not as many female disciples in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion as there were in the Misty Sword sect. Furthermore, even if some girls learned the saber, they would not spend too much time researching the deeper meaning of saber techniques. Very few girls were like Yun Kursen, completely immersing themselves in saber techniques. Even Xiao Chen felt ashamed of his own inferiority to Yun Kursen's understanding of saber techniques. Thus, Xiao Chen found this question very strange. When she heard this question, Yun Kursen revealed a youthful smile on her delicate face. She said, "My personality dictates it. I have liked the saber since I was young." Later on, I heard some stories about bladesmen. So, I decided to become one. After that, I arrived at the Holy Land of Bladesmen. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion is no longer the Heavenly Saber Pavilion of the past. I did not see a true bladesman. A true bladesman? Xiao Chen felt it was strange. Could it be that there was a difference between a real and a fake bladesman? Yun Kursen explained, "The bladesman I am talking about is the bladesman of the ancient era. In this world, the sword came before the saber." Do you know why? Without waiting for Xiao Chen to reply, Yun Kursen continued, "Because the sword is a ceremonial weapon. It represents benevolence, righteousness, and the air of a gentleman. Thus, it is the ancestor of all weapons. Only a person with great boldness can be called a swordsman. However, there are very few people in this world who are able to do that. Most of them are people who try to be cultured and use the name of a swordsman to act like a hypocrite." Later on, there were some people who knew that they could not be a true gentleman. However, they did not want to be hypocritical. Thus, they created the saber. The saber was different from the sword. The saber was a true lethal weapon. It was a lethal weapon that existed to kill. It was not restricted by any rules and regulations. It was for the sake of being able to express one's true self. After Xiao Chen heard Yun Kursen's introduction, he entered deep thought. He felt that he had found some answers to some of the questions that had troubled him for a long time. He could not help but become more interested in this topic. He asked, "Since that is the case, if the saber is a lethal weapon, then the 5,000-odd Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples should all be bladesmen, right?" Yun Kursen shook her head, "Wrong. Lethal weapon is just the surface meaning of the saber. It does not mean that you are a bladesman just because you use the saber to kill people. Instead, you have to have a boldness in your heart, not fearing power, not bowing and scraping. This is a sharpness that can be withdrawn. However, this boldness cannot disappear. Otherwise, you will not be able to express your true self. You will just be a murderous demon, even more abominable than those hypocrites." Yun Kursen paused for a while and poured herself a cup of wine. She looked at Xiao Chen and smiled faintly, "Actually, I envy you. When I first saw you, I noticed that you were different from the other Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples. In the end, I was right. Even until now, the boldness in your heart has not weakened at all. Instead, it has become sharper and more stable. One day, this boldness will turn into a treasured saber and become your saber soul. At that time, you will be a true bladesman." Xiao Chen's expression turned serious. He felt like he had met someone who understood him. This was the first time he met someone who could understand him so well. He placed the wine cup on the stone table and smiled gently. "In your opinion, how many people in the history of the great Qin nation can be considered a true bladesman?" Yun Kursen muttered to herself for a while before smiling, "You speak too highly of me. What I said is only my understanding. As for whether it is right or wrong, I do not know. However, the ones that I truly admire are the first pavilion master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, the Thunder King from 1,000 years ago, and the current commander of the Imperial Dragon Legion, Nangong Yen." The two of them chatted as they drank. In the end, the more they chatted, the more interested they became. They actually drank for the entire afternoon. The two of them were slightly tipsy. Chapter 282. Xiaochen raised his head and looked at the sky. The sun was setting in the west, and the sky was red. It was already dusk. He stood up and smiled bitterly. I can't chat anymore, I have to go. If there is an opportunity in the future, let's drink to our heart's content. The sky was as red as fire. Because she had drunk too much, Yun Kursen's delicate face also had a tinge of red. It complemented the setting sun, making her look even more beautiful than the setting sun. Yun Kursen stood up and performed a cup-fist salute. Take care, we will meet again in the future. Xiaochen nodded his head, then he turned around and left his courtyard, heading towards the main gate of the Yun residence. The setting sun was like blood, dyeing his back a bright red, leaving a long shadow on the ground. Yun Kursen sent off Xiaochen with her eyes. She only withdrew her gaze after he disappeared from her vision for a long time. After Xiaochen left the Yun residence, he immediately headed out of the city. He was prepared to rush to the port of the Black Dragon River before the sky turned dark. Along the way, Xiaochen executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art. His body moved like a flood dragon on the road. His speed was much faster than the dragon blood horse. When the sun completely set, Xiaochen finally arrived at the port. The port was brightly lit, it was filled with large cargo ships waiting to set sail. Xiaochen looked around and casually found a merchant ship. After he stated his purpose and paid, he successfully boarded the ship. The deck was filled with cultivators preparing to cross the river. Xiaochen found an empty spot and sat down cross-legged. Soon, he entered a state of cultivation and slowly circulated the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. The night passed by silently. When the sky brightened the next day, the merchant ship had already quietly set sail, traveling on the vast and boundless Black Dragon River. Did you hear? The Shiha twin fiends were killed by someone. Their bodies were chopped in half, and they died without a complete corpse. That's impossible. The Shiha twin fiends were inferior-grade martial kings. They had roamed the Shiha province for so many years and had been surrounded several times. However, they always managed to escape unscathed. How could they be killed without a complete corpse? I heard about this as well. Someone personally saw their corpses lying on the Devil Savannah. Eventually, they were eaten by wolves. However, I do not know who did it. Hee, I know who did it. At that time, I saw it with my own eyes. These two people failed miserably. They blocked the Misty Sword Sect's Chu Chaoyun, wanting him to hand over the superior-grade spirit stones from the auction. In the end, Chu Chaoyun single-handedly killed them and took away all their belongings. Early in the morning, the deck slowly became lively. A group of cultivators talked about the recent hot topics. When Xiaochen heard that it was related to Chu Chaoyun, he could not help but listen carefully. Isn't Chu Chaoyun only a peak superior-grade martial saint? How could he fight against two inferior-grade martial kings at the same time? Even if he won, it would be very difficult. The first person sneered and said, "Hard work. Don't joke around, it was a one-sided slaughter." Especially after Chu Chaoyun used his saint weapon, the two of them didn't even have the chance to run before they were cut in half. That's impossible. I saw it with my own eyes. It is definitely true. At that time, there was a group of bandits on the Devil Savannah. They were the helpers of the Shiha twin bandit kings. However, when they saw the situation, they fled in fright. Everyone on the deck took a deep breath. They had not expected Chu Chaoyun to be so strong. Killing inferior-grade martial kings was as easy as killing dogs. The rising sun leaped out from the east and instantly illuminated the entire river, turning it fiery red. As Xiaochen watched the rising sun, he revealed a grave expression. He muttered, "Chu Chaoyun is like this rising sun. The instant he makes a move, it can pierce through the darkness of dawn. He is incomparably strong. He once defeated me in one move. If I cannot defeat him in the future, it might leave an eternal shadow in my heart." Xiaochen withdrew his gaze and thought back to his fight with Chu Chaoyun. When he thought about it carefully, he realized that Chu Chaoyun had only used half a move to defeat him. This was because Chu Chaoyun had not fully drawn out that holy weapon. That was the most miserable battle that Xiao Qin had experienced since he made his debut. It could be said to be a heart demon. If Xiao Qin did not get rid of this heart demon, he would face a huge bottleneck sooner or later. Hence, a battle between him and Chu Chaoyun was inevitable. The cultivators on the ship were still discussing Chu Chaoyun. Xiao Qin walked to a quiet place and looked at the vast and boundless Black Dragon River. "Little brother, are you a disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion?" As Xiao Qin looked into the distance, someone came over and greeted him. Xiao Qin turned his head and discovered it was a middle-aged man about 40 years old. He was an early medial grade martial saint. He wore azure robes and carried a large saber on his back. Xiao Qin nodded and said, I am a Qingyun Peak disciple. Why are you looking for me?" The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Nothing much. My son is a Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciple as well. I am going to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion this time as well. The journey is long, it would be good to find a companion to chat with." When Xiao Qin heard this, his expression relaxed. He smiled warmly and said, "I wonder, what is your son's name? Perhaps I might know him." The middle-aged man revealed a proud expression as he said, "My son is Gao Xiang, a Gangyu Peak disciple. He passed the test last year and is already a core disciple. I believe his cultivation has already surpassed mine." Gangyu Peak, Gao Xiang. Xiao Qin was mildly startled in his heart. However, his expression did not change as he said, "I know Gao Xiang. He was already a medial grade martial saint long ago. I wonder why uncle is looking for him." When the middle-aged man heard Xiao Qin say he knew Gao Xiang, he immediately revealed a joyful smile. He said, "So, you are friends with my son. What is little brother's name? It looks like this brat's abilities have already surpassed mine. It was not in vain that I spent a large sum of spirit stones to send him into the Heavenly Saber Pavilion." "That's right, what is my son doing now? He has not returned for a long time already. He has not written a letter either. This time, I am going to the Dongming province. Coincidentally, I passed by the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and wanted to take a look." Xiao Chen's heart tightened. He did not know how to answer this question. He had seen Gao Xiang die in front of him. However, when he saw the smile on the middle-aged man's face, he could not bear to tell the truth. Perhaps it was as Yun Kursen said, there were no longer any true bladesmen in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. No matter how many reasons there were, they should not send their own disciples to their deaths. The anger in the hearts of the entire upper echelon of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had already vanished. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Qin said, "I am Yi Chen. However, uncle, you might have made a wasted trip. Gao Xiang went out for experiential training 2 months ago. He probably will not be back until the end of the year." A look of disappointment flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes. He said, "In that case, never mind. It is not easy to enter the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Thank you, little brother." Xiao Qin squeezed out a smile with much difficulty. He did his best to maintain a natural appearance and said, "It is just a small matter, there is no need to be so polite." "Quick, look. What is that?" Suddenly, someone on the deck cried out. Everyone quickly stopped talking and looked over. They saw a huge black figure quickly approaching the merchant ship on the river 1,000 meters away. In the next moment, the surface of the river started to fluctuate violently. A huge waterspout surged over. "It's a black tuna whale, a peak rank 6 spirit beast. It is equivalent to an inferior grade martial king. Why are we so unlucky? We only traveled such a short distance and we already met the black tuna whale. We are finished." When the people on the deck recognized the black tuna whale, they immediately panicked. When Xiao Qin saw the black tuna whale, he was stunned at first. Then, he smiled and said, "This is really fate. I managed to meet it again and again. Since you are here this time, don't think about leaving. Little brother, what are you doing? Don't be rash. Gao Xiang's father shouted when he saw Xiaochen rush up to the deck. The youths nowadays are really reckless. They even dare to clash head-on with the black tuna whale. When the crowd saw Xiaochen soar into the air, they all mocked him. Xiaochen, who was in the air, had a calm expression. He ignored the mocking words of the people on the deck. He looked at the 200-meter-tall waterspout without any fear. His speed increased again. Rumble. Boundless clouds surged over from the horizon. The clear sky suddenly turned dark. Muffled sounds came from the clouds. Xiaochen's state of thunder rose continuously. Drawing the saber. When his aura reached its peak, Xiaochen shouted. A dazzling bolt of lightning tore through the sky, creating a purple waterspout. Xiaochen drew the lunar shadow saber in his hand and appeared at the same time as the bolt of lightning. While he was in the air, he carried a boundless aura. Using the might of the supreme thunder, he hacked down on the saber. A magnificent saber light lit up in the dark sky. With a shwa sound, the saber light chopped the horrifying waterspout in half. The terrifying waterspout immediately dispersed and turned into a sky full of rainwater. The rainwater fell onto the deck, drenching the cultivators on the deck. When the people below saw Xiaochen hack apart the waterspout with his saber, they were shocked speechless for a long time. The people who said that Xiaochen was reckless all had unnatural expressions on their faces. Small perfection state of thunder. I remember who he is now. He is the Qingyun Peak disciple from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion who fought Mu Qingxue to a draw. So, it is him. Since when did such a strong disciple appear in Qingyun Peak? I only remember that there was a Murong Chong in the past. However, he already left Qingyun Peak. What is this person called? Someone on the deck finally recognized Xiaochen. They were all astonished. Gao Xiang's father smiled and said, "This person is called Yichen. He is my son's friend." Yichen. I have never heard of this name before. He should be a new young expert. It looks like the second Murong Chong of our Shiha province is going to rise up. Xiaochen's figure flashed in the air and landed firmly on the water surface. Half a month ago, when Xiaochen faced the weakened waterspout, he could use his physical body to shatter it. Now that he was a medial-grade martial saint, it was not strange for him to hack apart the waterspout with his saber. The blue dragon cloud soaring art circulated. Xiaochen kicked up a huge wave on the water surface as he charged at the black tuna whale in the distance. From afar, it looked like he was flying on the water surface like a water dragon. Hu Qi. When the huge black tuna whale saw Xiaochen rushing over quickly, it roared angrily in the water. Countless water swords immediately condensed on the water surface and shot at Xiaochen. The water swords contained a horrifying energy. They gave off a zzz sound as they moved through the air. They were incredibly fast. Xiaochen grasped the lunar shadow saber and leaped continuously on the water surface. When he faced the water swords flying at him, he sent out a purple saber chi to protect himself. Chapter 283. Dang! 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 The saber chi and the book sword that the black tuna whale sent out clashed intensely and exploded. The shockwaves from the explosion caused pillars of water to shoot up from the surface of the water. The river water filled the air. Xiaochen's body moved nimbly through the shockwaves, passing through the layers of water as he stabbed at the black tuna whale. Pu Ci. The sharp tip of the saber cut a long gash on Heiteng's body, causing blood to gush out like a fountain. On the surface of the water, the black tuna whale did not have any advantage against the astonishingly fast Xiaochen. After it suffered, it immediately tried to sink to the bottom of the water. The black tuna whale's body was about the size of a huge merchant ship. With such a huge body, it wanted to sink to the bottom of the water. Xiaochen did not have a good way to stop it. He could only leave a few more bloody wounds on it before it sank to the bottom. The electricity on the saber entered the black tuna whale's body through its wounds. Even though it sank to the bottom of the water, the electricity still crackled and flickered, leaving behind waves on the surface of the water. Who? Suddenly, a huge whirlpool appeared under Xiao Chen's feet, trying to pull him in. Xiao Chen, who had experienced this before, naturally would not be trapped by the same move. Lightning evasion. After comprehending the state of thunder, Xiao Chen's usage of the lightning evasion became even more proficient. He could teleport within 100 meters in one breath. A bolt of lightning flashed by and Xiao Chen's body immediately landed 100 meters away, avoiding that huge whirlpool. Bang! 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 Suddenly, there were 4 loud sounds on the surface of the water that had just calmed down. 4 waterspouts that were more than 200 meters long and 20 meters wide appeared around Xiao Chen. The waterspouts spun quickly on the surface of the water, filling the sky with rain. They formed a pincer as they quickly closed in on Xiao Chen. Every time the waterspouts spun, they visibly grew by 10 meters. When they were about to close in on each other, they were already very horrifying. Almost all of Xiao Chen's escape routes were blocked in all 4 directions. Even if he flew into the sky, it would not work. Xiao Chen tried to use the lightning evasion technique, but he found that the 4 waterspouts seemed to have formed some kind of barrier. The lightning evasion technique, which could teleport within 100 meters, was useless. Each of the 4 waterspouts had a force of several tens of thousands of jin. Added together, they had a terrifying force of 100,000 jin. The situation was critical, but Xiao Chen remained calm. He did not panic because he still had 2 trump cards that could help him get through the situation safely. However, he didn't plan to use it because the real enemy hadn't appeared yet, so it wasn't time to use it yet. 3 flowing cloud images. Xiao Chen drew a circle with his left hand and held the snow-white lunar shadow saber with his right. He danced in the air, creating an indistinct mark. His mental state was at peace and he immediately entered the state of perfection like water. Suddenly, his figure quickly became blurry. He kept moving on the surface of the water, like a small stream merging with the sea. His entire body turned into water. Bang! The 4 waterspouts merged together and gave off a loud sound. The entire surface of the Black Dragon River started to fluctuate violently. The merchant ship not far away was rocking left and right in the waves. The people on the deck did their best to maintain their balance in the midst of the huge waves. It's over. The 4 waterspouts together have a force of 100,000 jin. This fellow is going to fall here. The people on the deck looked at Xiao Chen being swallowed up by the waterspouts and said regretfully. The huge waterspout soared into the sky. It was more than 500 meters long, it was much stronger than any waterspout they had seen before. The black tuna whale had used up a lot of essence to create such a strong waterspout. Hu Qi. Just as everyone felt pity for Xiao Chen, a figure leaped out of the waterspout without any injuries. How can this be? That is a force of 100,000 jin. Even a medial-grade martial king would be crushed into meat paste. He is just a medial-grade martial saint. How can he be fine? The people on the deck exclaimed. Indeed, Xiao Chen would not be able to withstand a force of 100,000 jin. Even 25,000 jin of force would be enough to severely injure Xiao Chen. Unfortunately, this force was not from a fist. Instead, it was from the 4 waterspouts. After Xiao Chen entered the state of perfection like water, he merged with the water. How could this waterspout injure him? The dark clouds churned even more intensely in the sky. Occasionally, bolts of lightning tore through the sky. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense shot into the water like an arrow. He immediately found the black tuna whale at the bottom of the water. He smiled coldly and a boundless aura started to gather. Rumble. When Xiao Chen's aura gathered to its peak, a huge electric whirlpool appeared in the sky. Boundless lightning flickered around the whirlpool continuously. It formed a horrifying scene, it was like the end of the world. At this moment, Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as still water. He intended to try out a move that he had only imagined in the past. That was to merge all the moves of the Rushing Thunder Saber technique and form a new killing move. In the past, when Feng Feishue told him that the Rushing Thunder Saber technique still had the Rushing Thunder Third Chain Chop after the Rushing Thunder Second Chain Chop, Xiao Chen had never given up on trying to comprehend the Rushing Thunder Third Chain Chop. However, no matter what, the aura of the Rushing Thunder Saber technique was exhausted after the Rushing Thunder Second Chain Chop. It was impossible to follow up with the Rushing Thunder Third Chain Chop. From then on, Xiao Chen had a thought. Perhaps the true Rushing Thunder Third Chain Chop did not follow up with the Rushing Thunder Second Chain Chop. Instead, it was a completely new move. After he comprehended the state of thunder, Xiao Chen was even more certain of his thoughts. The so-called Rushing Thunder Third Chain Chop was actually the merging of all the previous saber techniques together. The aura that originally required 5 moves to be condensed was suddenly released together. Suddenly, Xiao Chen shouted loudly. Suddenly, countless riders riding on electric warhorses flew out from the huge electric whirlpool. It was like 10,000 horses galloping, vast and boundless. The sound of 10,000 horses galloping resounded in the sky. The sound of 1,000 soldiers crossing the river mixed with the rumbling thunder, doubling Xiao Chen's aura once again. This was the true Rushing Thunder Third Chain Chop. Rushing thunder roars, 10,000 horses galloping. In the next moment, Xiao Chen led the army and charged into the water from the sky. With a bang, a huge and dense purple saber chi split the wide surface of the Black Dragon River in half. Xiao Chen suddenly paused in midair. His rapidly descending body stopped in midair. His ordinary face was incomparably grave and stern. The bright lunar shadow saber quickly pointed at the black tuna whale, which had revealed itself. The vast army made of pure electricity immediately pounced over. Bang! 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 Every rider that crashed into the mountain-like body of the black tuna whale would give off an intense explosion. Then, they would turn into strands of purple electricity floating in the air. The intense shockwaves from the explosions prevented the river on both sides from merging. The black tuna whale's body lay at the bottom of the river, unable to move. There were more than 10,000 explosions. The mountain-like black tuna whale was blasted until it was covered in wounds. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. Under the relentless attacks, it had no way of resisting at all. The instant all the explosions calmed down, Xiao Chen swung his saber in the air. The boundless electricity floating on the water immediately infused into the saber. The snow-white lunar shadow saber gave off an intense purple light, looking very strange. Die! Xiao Chen shouted and his figure flashed in the air. He arrived beside the black tuna whale and did not lose any momentum. The lunar shadow saber easily blasted a 3-meter-tall hole in the black tuna whale's body. With a flip of his hand, a huge suction force appeared and sucked the peak rank 6 spirit core of the black tuna whale out of the hole. The black tuna whale was sucked out of the hole. The black tuna whale that terrified all the merchant groups on the Black Dragon River died just like that. When Xiao Chen saw that the two sides of the river were about to merge, he pushed off the river and flew out before the river closed up. The crystalline black tuna whale spirit core in Xiao Chen's hand gave off a gentle light. It contained dense water-attributed spiritual energy. This was a war trophy that belonged to the brave. I really can't believe it. The black tuna whale that roamed the Black Dragon River for so many years was actually killed by a youth. This is the nightmare of many merchant ships. Indeed, this is especially so in the water. Even some martial kings would find it difficult to stop it from escaping. This youth was able to think of the idea of trapping the black tuna whale at the bottom of the river. This is very shocking. Qingyun Peak's Chen. Soon, this name will be as famous as Qingyun Peak's Murong Chong throughout the Shihe River. Back then, Murong Chong was also extremely talented. He challenged the 10 great bandit groups of the Great Devil Prairie by himself and killed them until they were terror-stricken. At that time, the fame of Qingyun Peak was also spread for a period of time. However, I do not know why he left Qingyun Peak in the end. That final move earlier, aside from the fact that it takes a long time to gather its aura, practically no martial saint can break it. However, he is still young. This move should become more and more perfect. When the people on the deck saw Shaoqin kill the black tuna whale, they were all astonished. They said that a young genius had risen up once again. The thunderclouds in the sky slowly scattered and sunlight appeared once again. It shone on Shaoqian's body, giving him a faint layer of gold. His long figure was reflected on the water. When the river wind blew, Shaoqian's hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. It looked somewhat ethereal. Hu Qi. Just at this moment, a boundless killing chi suddenly appeared in the distant sky. The moment that killing chi appeared, it covered the sky. It was not concealed at all. It was sharp and radiated in all directions. It was like a gushing river, surging towards Shaoqian. Amidst the killing chi filling the air, Yu Mingshan appeared from a cloud. He swung out 100-meter-long saber. A saber chi containing a boundless sharpness flew towards Shaoqian. The saber chi rubbed against each other in the air, giving off a piercing sound. Everywhere it passed, the wind and clouds scattered. Ripples spread out in the air like water. Someone on the deck recognized Yu Mingshan and exclaimed, "It's Yu Mingshan. What is he trying to do?" Above the water, Shaoqian placed the black tuna whale's spirit core into his universe ring. When he felt the killing chi behind him, his expression did not change. He did not show any surprise. He smiled faintly. The person I have been waiting for has finally appeared. Chapter 284. Shaoqian was not surprised at Yu Mingshan's appearance. In fact, it was within his expectations. A large part of the reason why Shaoqian killed the black tuna whale in such a high-profile manner was to lure this person out. He knew that the other party was an extremely cautious cultivator. If Shaoqian did not reveal any openings or exhausted a large amount of essence, the other party would not make a move. Pu Ci. In the blink of an eye, that dense and surging saber chi had already arrived before Shaoqian. Glittering Wukue. Shaoqian turned around and shouted. He spun his saber and a divine Wukue tree branch appeared from nowhere. It turned into a strand of majestic purple saber chi and clashed with the saber chi. Rumble. At the same time that he sent out the saber chi, Shaoqian brought out his state of thunder. Thunder roared continuously. When the purple saber chi sounded, it expanded. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a surging saber chi as well. Boom! The two saber chi clashed in the air and gave off an intense explosion. They did not give way to each other. A pillar of water soared into the sky from the water. Yu Mingshan descended from the sky and landed firmly on the water. He felt that it was somewhat strange. Shaoqian's earlier rushing thunder roars should have exhausted a large amount of essence. How could he have excess essence to deal with the killing move that he had prepared so meticulously? Could it be that he had been holding back all this while? Shaoqian looked quietly at Yu Mingshan in front. A brilliant light flashed in his eyes. He said sullenly, "Who sent you to kill me? You are so patient, following me from the Devil Savannah all the way until now." Yu Mingshan said coldly, "There is no need for a dead person to ask so many questions." The saber in Yu Mingshan's hand flickered with a watery blue light. Killing chi surged from his body and ripples appeared on the water under his feet. Shaoqian smiled faintly, "Kill me. Do you think that you can escape today?" Wukue transforms to chi. Shaoqian pushed off the water's surface and soared into the air. He sent out a saber light and the ancient divine Wukue tree appeared from nowhere. It turned into strands of resplendent saber chi and rained down on Yu Mingshan. The Wukue transforms to chi contained the state of thunder. Every saber light was like a bolt of lightning breaking through the air. They resonated with the rumbling thunder in the sky, forming a strange mysterious phenomenon. A strange look flashed in Yu Mingshan's eyes. He knew that he had fallen into a trap this time. The other party had clearly lured him out on purpose. However, as a veteran of hundreds of battles, he knew that he couldn't afford to have stage fright at this moment. Otherwise, his momentum would plummet, and he might really lose his life here. Looking at the purple saber energy dancing in the sky, Yu Mingshan coldly snorted, "Insignificant tricks." Yu Mingshan brandished his saber and sent out a dense saber chi. Bang! 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 The purple saber chi flying at him immediately turned into chaotic electric currents. When comparing the quality of saber chi, Xiao Chen, who was only a medial grade martial saint, was much weaker than Yu Mingshan, who was an inferior grade martial king. Even when he used the state of thunder, he did not have an advantage. Seeing that the Wukuei transforms to chi did not have much use, Xiao Chen decisively withdrew his hand. He shouted and all the purple saber chi in the air returned to the lunar shadow saber. The saber gave off a bright purple glow. Muffled thunder roared in the sky. It was as though a peerless thunder was brewing. In the next moment, the light on the saber became so dazzling that it hurt one's eyes. Then, it was released with a shwa sound. Chi breaks Wukuei. The peerless thunder that had been brewing in the sky resounded at the same time. The loud sound of thunder caused a huge wave to form on the water's surface. Pu ci. A strand of purple saber chi pierced through the huge wave and quickly flew at Yu Mingshan. The saber chi's glow was withdrawn, it looked very simple. Yu Mingshan smiled in disdain and casually sent out a strand of saber chi. He smiled and said, "You overestimate yourself. You are just an inferior grade martial saint. Unexpectedly, you want to compete with me in saber chi." There was a qualitative difference between the saber chi of a martial king and a martial saint. A martial saint could only just send out saber chi. In terms of the density of saber chi, there was a world of difference between a martial king and a martial king. With a hua la sound, something happened that caused Yu Mingshan to turn pale with fright. The saber chi that he sent out was easily shattered by Xiao Chen's purple saber chi, it was unable to resist at all. So, Yu Mingshan did not dare to think too much. He immediately formed an essence barrier around himself and quickly dodged. However, by the time he wanted to move, it was already too late. That strand of purple saber chi looked very simple. However, it was extremely fast. It pierced through his essence barrier and left a bloody wound on his right arm. If he had not set up a Yuan Chi barrier in advance, his right arm might have been chopped off. As the huge wave crashed down, Xiao Chen's figure soared through the air. His aura was like a rainbow, rushing to the 9 heavens. Yu Mingshan's expression turned sullen. The watery blue light of the saber in his hand gathered continuously. He said indifferently, "Do you think that you are the only one with a state? Go to hell." There was an explosive shout and there was a peng-peng sound on the water's surface. 18 pillars of water shot out and merged together, forming a sharp blue saber. With a shwa sound, it merged into the saber. The saber chi that was like a waterfall spewed out at Xiao Chen. What a strong state of water, Xiao Chen thought to himself. It looked like the other party had considered this when he chose to make a move in the water. The might of the state of water would be even more horrifying on the water's surface. However, it was clear that the other party's state was not as strong as Xiao Chen's. The state of water could only be considered to be at the beginner level. If it were not for the fact that his cultivation was much higher than Xiao Chen's, it would be impossible for him to have such might. Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations. 9 cool breezes blew on the water's surface. The instant Xiao Chen executed the Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations, he immediately executed the clear wind chop. His figure flickered, it was hard to distinguish the real from the fake. He immediately dodged the waterfall-like saber chi and successfully approached Yu Mingshan. Instantly, the killing chi vanished. There were only 6 gentle breezes on the water's surface. Yu Mingshan's expression turned grave. He had a deeper understanding of the might of the clear wind chop than anyone else. Yu Mingshan stomped on the water's surface and a 10-meter-tall water screen rose up around him. The water screen spread out in all directions. The instant Xiao Chen's figure passed through the water screen, the other 8 clones were destroyed by the strange energy contained in the water screen. It turned out that Yu Mingshan had used his strong state of water to destroy Xiao Chen's state of wind. The strong clear wind chop was destroyed. When Yu Mingshan saw Xiao Chen's true body remaining, he revealed a sinister smile. He said, "Without the clear wind chop, let's see how you are going to fight me in close combat." When a martial king compared to a martial saint, the greatest advantage was speed. Even a peak martial saint's speed was only close to the speed of sound. Furthermore, they did not have a flying martial technique and could not fly. However, a martial king was different. Not only could they break the speed of sound, they could also fly easily. A peak martial king could even reach the speed of sound with a casual step. In terms of speed, a martial saint and a martial king could not be compared. In close combat, they could end the battle in a few moves. This was because a martial saint could not even touch a martial king. That was why Yu Mingshan said this. Chi. Xiao Chen executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art to its limits. His body created a piercing sonic boom as he moved through the air. He sent out a saber light, sending an unending stream of attacks at Yu Mingshan. A purple electric light spread through the air, it was like an electric net. Yu Mingshan had a relaxed expression. His body moved very quickly, it was like he had merged with the cool wind. He did not make any sound and easily dodged Xiao Chen's attacks. One of them moved and the other stayed still. Xiao Chen's aura was like a rainbow and his voice was like thunder. However, his speed was always slower. He was unable to touch Yu Mingshan's body. Sometimes, Xiao Chen relied on technique. When the saber got close to Yu Mingshan, it would be easily broken by his saber. Slowly, Yu Mingshan grasped the rhythm of the battle. Xiao Chen wanted to retreat a few times, but he was blocked by his opponent's ghostly figure. He could not retreat even if he wanted to. Only at this moment did Yu Mingshan heave a sigh of relief. All I need to do is control the rhythm. I will slowly grind him down first. When his aura reaches rock bottom, I will deal a lightning-fast strike and completely defeat him, eliminating any future problems. Yu Mingshan dodged Xiao Chen's attack again. He said, "Give up and surrender. I will give you a quick death." Perhaps you do not know this, but the greatest difference between a martial saint and a martial king is the difference in speed. This is an insurmountable gap, unless you are a wind-attributed cultivator. Unfortunately, you are not, haha. This was not the first time Yu Mingshan used words to attack his opponent in battle. This was especially so when his opponent was at rock bottom. Using words to attack a cultivator with weak willpower could cause them to go berserk, revealing a large opening. This could save him a lot of effort. When fighting with others, one had to always hold back. This was Yu Mingshan's rule. This was because there were always some unexpected things in the world. So, if he could save some energy, he would. As he spoke, Yu Mingshan caught hold of a small opening of Xiao Chen's. His figure flashed quickly, and his saber cut a small wound on Xiao Chen's chest. He smiled faintly, "This is the difference. I can easily attack you, but you cannot attack me." Xiao Chen's expression did not change. The instant Yu Mingshan finished speaking, the saber in his hand pierced out from a strange angle, aiming for Yu Mingshan's chest. Yu Mingshan was startled, and he quickly dodged backward, avoiding a vital point. This saber broke through his essence barrier and only left a small wound. Yu Mingshan's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, "I cannot be too careless. Although this brat is slower than me, he is only slower by a bit." After that, Yu Mingshan became even more cautious. Occasionally, he would leave wounds on Xiao Chen's body. As for Xiao Chen, no matter how hard he tried, he could not attack him. Above the water, the two of them moved quickly. Saber lights shot out in all directions, causing pillars of water to rise into the sky. This continued for half an hour. Yu Mingshan's eyes lit up. It is time, there is no need to drag this out. His state of thunder is at least half as strong as before. Die! Water dragon burst. Yu Mingshan shouted loudly, and a wall of water hundreds of meters tall appeared on the water surface behind him. The waves surged, and the huge merchant ship swayed left and right. It looked very small, as though it could capsize at any moment. Chapter 285. The horrifying wall of water suddenly spun rapidly, forming a huge roaring water dragon. At this moment, the might of Yu Mingshan's state of water was raised to the limit. In an instant, it scattered Xiao Chen's state of thunder. The dark clouds in the sky scattered and sunlight shone down once again, shining on Yu Mingshan's sinister face. He revealed an extremely cruel smile. The dragon moved its head, moving faster than the speed of sound. It merged with the sound of the wind and left a formless shockwave in the air. Before it got close to Xiao Chen, the huge shockwave knocked Xiao Chen back. Bang! With a shwa sound, the water dragon caught up to Xiao Chen, who was tumbling on the water. It crashed into him and the huge force formed a huge whirlpool on the water. There was a loud boom, and Xiao Chen's body sank to the bottom of the water. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The Black Dragon River had surging waves. The merchant ship bobbed up and down for a long time before it slowly came to a stop. It's over, the state of thunder has scattered. Yu Chen faced Yu Mingshan's full-powered strike head-on. Even if he doesn't die, he will be severely injured. The most important thing is that he is currently above the water. The might of the water dragon burst will be greatly amplified. It is equivalent to the strength of a medial-grade martial saint. How unfortunate, Qing Yun Peak finally produced a genius. Before he could rise up, he was killed by Yu Mingshan. The older the ginger, the spicier. Who knows, why did Yu Mingshan want to kill Yu Chen? They do not seem to have any grudges. The many cultivators on the deck shook their heads and sighed. They felt that it was a pity. They thought that Xiao Chen had no chance of surviving this time. The sunlight shone on the clear water. The calm Black Dragon River was sparkling, it was very beautiful. Yu Mingshan stood on the water and extended his perception, scanning the situation under the water. However, after looking for a long time, he could not feel Xiao Chen's aura. Looks like he died immediately. His body was blown up by the water dragon and died without a complete corpse. This is difficult, I wonder how to explain this to Song Quebec. Yu Mingshan frowned slightly and shook his head. He turned around and prepared to leave. Just at this moment, layers of dark clouds suddenly swept over from the bright and beautiful sky. In the blink of an eye, the sky suddenly became dark and gloomy, and endless thunder sounded once again. Yu Mingshan stopped in his tracks. His expression changed greatly as he said, "How did it become like this?" Bang! There was a splash on the surface of the water. Xiao Chen leaped out unscathed. The saber in his hand flickered with an electric light. It emitted killing qi as it pointed at Yu Mingshan. Yu Mingshan said in disbelief, "Why? My peak attack did not injure you at all." It was just a secret treasure, Xiao Chen smiled faintly in his heart. Of course, he would not tell Yu Mingshan about it, he would just let him guess. Yu Mingshan's sharp eyes noticed the jade pendant on Xiao Chen's chest. He suddenly understood and said, "So, it is a secret treasure. However, this kind of secret treasure has a limited number of uses. Since your speed is not as fast as mine, I will not lose." Xiao Chen sneered, "Is that so? Windwalk shoes, activate." The instant the windwalk shoes activated, Xiao Chen's figure flashed on the surface of the water. There was no sound at all as he arrived before Yu Mingshan at lightning speed. A purple saber light flashed and thunder roared in the sky. Xiao Chen's state and move merged perfectly, startling Yu Mingshan. In a hurry, Yu Mingshan held his saber horizontally in front of him. However, because he was caught off guard, he was knocked back 5 or 6 meters. What a fast speed! How did he break through the speed of sound in an instant? His speed is comparable to mine. Yu Mingshan stepped on the water, creating splashes. He finally stopped moving back. However, he was astonished in his heart. Wukuei shakes the earth. After spending so much effort, Xiaochen had figured out Yu Mingshan's strength. It was time to counterattack. Xiaochen shouted and a fierce electric light burned on his saber. The ancient divine Wukuei tree appeared on the water surface. After a while, it turned into a tree of electric light several hundred meters tall, pressing down on Yu Mingshan. This was the fourth move of the Wukuei saber technique's killing move, Absolute Kill. When he made his move, he could put his opponent in a desperate situation. Yu Mingshan's expression changed again. The huge divine Wukuei tree gave him a horrifying pressure. He circulated his essence continuously and 18 water droplets exploded behind him. The water droplets gathered and formed a sharp saber. It was like a waterfall as it rushed forward. Bang! The moment they came into contact, the divine Wukuei tree shattered Yu Mingshan's waterfall saber chi. The comprehension of their states was on a completely different level. Xiaochen's state of thunder had already reached the peak of small perfection. Every move he made could be infused into his state. As for Yu Mingshan, he had only just started. He could only use his state to increase the might of his martial techniques. Once Xiaochen used a peak martial technique, the quality of his essence would be equal to Yu Mingshan's. His martial techniques infused with his state would no longer be sufficient. The divine Wukuei tree struck Yu Mingshan's body with a boom. It broke through his essence shield and entered his body. It turned into a berserk energy rampaging through his meridians. Yu Mingshan vomited a large mouthful of blood and suppressed the chaotic essence in his body. His complexion was somewhat pale as he said, "Damn it. Even if this old man has to risk his life, I will kill you." Double Dragon burst. There was a ferocious roar and a horrifying wall of water appeared on the water surface. It turned into 2 huge water dragons and flew at Xiaochen. Xiaochen's expression was calm, there were not many fluctuations. If his opponent had used this move from the start, Xiaochen would not have been able to block it. Unfortunately, his opponent was too cautious. The chi in a cultivator's heart had already disappeared. He no longer had any sharpness. He only thought about how to obtain a complete victory. He dared to suffer even the slightest injury. Now that Xiaochen had missed this opportunity and executed this move while he was severely injured, its might would be reduced by at least half. Even if he did not have a secret treasure, there was nothing to fear. Xiaochen shouted and a purple light started to circulate on the water surface under Xiaochen's feet. After a while, it formed a strange flower bud, wrapping around Xiaochen. Bang! Bang! The 2 water dragons struck the purple flower bud and gave off 2 loud sounds. Waves surged up and shockwaves spread out. A barrier of water dozens of meters tall appeared in the surroundings. When the barrier of water fell back and the river surface calmed down, the purple flower bud was still as good as before, there were no signs of damage. Wukuei blossoms. Xiaochen shouted from within the flower bud. The petals suddenly bloomed, looking very beautiful. Then, Xiaochen leaped out from the petals. Immediately, petals filled the air. Wukuei blossoms bloomed in the air. As the petals fluttered, Xiaochen passed through the countless petals and quickly arrived before Yu Mingshan. Xiaochen stabbed out with his saber. It was so fast that no one could think. Petals filled the air, this saber strike was very beautiful. Rumble. Yu Mingshan's body was knocked back by this saber strike. He left a long mark on the water surface as he flew for more than a kilometer. The purple flowers that filled the air quickly chased after Yu Mingshan. A whirlwind formed in the air and all the petals merged back into a strange Wukuei flower. The Wukuei flower flowed through Xiaochen's wound and quickly entered Yu Mingshan's body. Xiaochen did not move from his original position. He straightened his saber and used 2 fingers on his left hand to slowly move from the bottom of the saber to the tip. He shouted softly, "Wukue supporting the heavens." A wukue tree trunk grew out of Yu Mingshan's chest from nowhere as he struggled to stand. As Xiao Chen's fingers moved, the tree trunk grew larger and larger. It grew at a visible rate. After a while, countless branches sprouted from the tree trunk. Then, countless branches branched out from the branches. Many purple wukue flowers bloomed. In just a few blinks of an eye, the tree trunk in front of Yu Mingshan's chest had turned into a towering tree. It was more than 200 meters tall and had many branches. Flowers bloomed everywhere. This was the true profoundness of wukue blossoms. It infused energy into the enemy's body. Initially, it did not have much power. However, the next move, wukue supporting the heavens, would erupt. Even if you were a martial king, you would lose all your combat prowess under this move. On the water surface, Yu Mingshan looked at the tree in front of his chest in horror. He felt that all the roots of the tree had already penetrated into his body, firmly grabbing onto his internal organs. His internal organs were all injured. He would not be able to recover without at least a year's time. Furthermore, Yu Mingshan felt an indescribable pain all over his body. Boundless electricity tormented him every second. However, this wukue supporting the heavens exhausted a lot of essence. Xiao Chen could not maintain it for too long. When the wukue tree completely disappeared, Yu Mingshan was already half dead. His pale face was filled with pain as he watched Xiao Chen slowly walk over. Yu Mingshan was so frightened that he turned pale. He pushed off the water surface and his body flew up unsteadily. Xiao Chen looked at the miserable Yu Mingshan in the air and smiled faintly. He took out the Soul Slayer bow from the universe ring and did not nock an arrow. Instead, he pulled the bowstring. Bang! The bowstring sounded out and Yu Mingshan's body fell into the water with a bang, sinking completely into the water. The great Yu Mingshan was actually killed by a youth until he was like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow. How regretful! Someone on the deck sighed softly. First, he killed the evil beast. Then, he defeated a martial king. This Qing Yun Pixie Chen is really horrifying. I originally thought that he would need some time to rise up. It looks like he has already risen up. The experts of the older generation are no longer able to do anything to him. Indeed, he is probably on par with Murong Chong. Only these geniuses are able to fight someone of a higher cultivation realm. The Nanling province has Ji Changkong and Mu Qingxue. The Dongming province has Hua Yunkong, Duanmuking, and the strong Chu Chaoyun. Our Shiha province finally has another person who can compare to these geniuses. These are all top-notch geniuses. In any previous generation, their accomplishments would be limitless. However, so many of them appeared in one go. In the future, there will definitely be a fierce battle. Don't forget about the experts of the royal courts. The people of the royal court are all geniuses. Furthermore, there is the demonic genius Princess Yu. If we count them all, there are too many geniuses in the younger generation of our great Qin nation. With so many geniuses, I wonder who will obtain the greatest luck in the end. It looks like it will be Princess Yu from the royal court. She suppressed everyone with her strength. I wonder what will happen in the future. We cannot forget about Princess Yu. Her lifespan is limited. She will lose her luck sooner or later. Chapter 286. I remember that there was once a person in the Dongming province who defeated many geniuses of the Dongming province. He even spent a large sum of money to challenge the noble clans. With such boldness, he must be an extraordinary genius. That's right. Now, the noble clans have doubled the bounty for this person. Together, the bounty is 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones. However, this person seems to have vanished without a trace, never appearing again. When the people on the deck saw Xiao Chen beat up Yu Mingshan, they all sighed. This battle was full of twists and turns. It was very thrilling and exciting. It was very satisfying to watch. Xiao Chen was always able to surprise everyone. When everyone thought that he was in a hopeless situation, he would turn the situation around and defeat his opponent. The dark clouds above the water scattered and the sunlight shone down once again. Xiao Chen stood on the water and his spiritual sense pierced through the water like an arrow, searching for Yumingshan's figure. There were strange fish in the river. With Yumingshan's current condition, he might not be able to block these man-eating fish. Xiao Chen did not want Yumingshan to die just like that. The reason why Xiao Chen did not knock an arrow earlier was because he was afraid of shooting Yumingshan to death. After that, he would not be able to get anything out of him. At the bottom of the dark water, Yumingshan dragged his injured body and swam quickly in the water. Strange ripples shot out in all directions, repelling the strange fish that attacked him. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "I forgot, this person is a water-attributed cultivator. His ability to survive in the river is much stronger than a regular cultivator's." Xiao Chen was not surprised at Yumingshan's strong desire to survive. This kind of person would think carefully before doing anything. To put it nicely, he was cautious. To put it bluntly, he was greedy for life and afraid of death. He did not have boldness. However, he did not know that the path of a cultivator was filled with danger. It was a fight with one's life in the first place. If one did not have great courage and the sharpness in one's heart did not fade, how could one overcome difficulties after difficulties? If one always thought about how to use tricks to overcome difficulties, once the sharpness faded, one would never be able to go far on the path of a cultivator. "Come out." Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and gently pushed off the surface of the river. He appeared above Yumingshan and punched the surface of the water. Bang! Immediately, a huge pillar of water surged out from the Black Dragon River. At the end of the pillar of water was Yumingshan's figure. He was knocked into the air and was frantically trying to move his body. Xiao Chen leaped into the air and grabbed him by the collar, landing firmly on the ground. Yumingshan revealed a horrified expression on his pale face. He said, "Don't kill me, I have 50,000 inferior grade spirit stones in my hands and 1,000 medial grade spirit stones. Let me go, they are all yours." Xiao Chen ignored him and said coldly, "Speak, who sent you to kill me?" Yumingshan first shook his head. Then, he felt Xiao Chen's killing intent. He immediately said, "I'll speak. I'll speak. It's Song K, Biyun Peak's Song Quebec. He promised me 2,000 medial grade spirit stones to kill you." Song K. A trace of killing intent flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. This was not unexpected. Xiao Chen really did not dare to let his guard down even for a moment. It was a pity that he couldn't do anything to Song K right now. He wasn't a match for Song K, and he couldn't find an opportunity to do so. In the future, when his strength increased, the first thing he had to do was to get rid of Song Quebec, boom. Xiao Chen removed the spatial ring from Yumingshan's hand and smashed his chest with his palm. Yumingshan's heart meridians shattered, and blood flowed out of all his orifices. He said in dissatisfaction, "Didn't you say you would not kill me?" Xiao Chen was expressionless as he said sullenly, "Sorry, I never said that. I am a person who does not leave behind future trouble for myself." Seeing Yumingshan's corpse slowly fall into the water, Xiao Chen glanced at the merchant ship not far away. After thinking for a while, he decided to cross the Black Dragon River. He did not want to take that merchant ship anymore. The main reason was that he was afraid of unnecessary socializing and wasting time. Xiao Chen's figure flashed in the air as he used the gravity spell and flew up. 3 days later, at night, on the Devil Savannah, Xiao Chen sat beside a bonfire and ate some roasted lightning beef. The meat of spirit beasts was even more fragrant and delicious than the meat of earth. There was no need for any seasoning, and it was already very delicious, leaving one with a lingering aftertaste. Furthermore, the meat of spirit beasts contained some natural spiritual energy. Eating it over a long period of time could strengthen the body and replenish qi. If one ate the meat of a higher-ranked spirit beast, such as a rank 8 or legendary rank 9 spirit beast, it could even raise one's cultivation realm. A heavy fragrance wafted through the devil savanna, attracting a large number of spirit beasts. However, when these spirit beasts saw Shao Chen, they did not dare to make a move. They only looked from afar before scattering. Shao Chen scanned the area with his spiritual sense and saw all this. He revealed a faint smile. 2 days ago, Shao Chen used the gravity spell to fly to the devil savanna. After that, he started to practice his saber on the bandits and spirit beasts that he encountered. After accumulating experience in actual combat, Shao Chen became more familiar with the first 6 moves of the Wukuei saber technique. Furthermore, the newly created Rushing Thunder Triple Chain Chop also became easier to use. Shao Chen already had good control over the period of storing energy, he could release and withdraw it as he pleased. The longer he could store his energy, the stronger it would be. The shorter the time, the weaker it would be. He needed to use it flexibly. The might of the Rushing Thunder roars was much stronger than Shao Chen had imagined. Previously, when he had stored energy for a minute, he had been able to destroy it with 10,000 horses galloping. What Shao Chen needed to do now was to raise his energy in the shortest time possible. That way, this move would become Shao Chen's new killing move, an important trump card. Hu Qi. A snow-white figure appeared in Shao Chen's vision in the dark night. When he looked carefully, he discovered that it was Bai. He was holding some spirit herbs in his hands as he rushed over. Just like before, when Shao Chen and Bai were alone, Bai would help him search for rare spirit herbs. Most of these spirit grasses were refined into higher-grade blood-replenishing pills and qi-returning pills. This allowed Shao Chen to have medicinal pills to use without spending money on spirit herbs. This was a great help to him. Bai presented the spirit herbs in his hands like he was presenting a treasure. Shao Chen smiled faintly and counted them carefully: rank 4 Blood Sun Flower, rank 500 Jade Spirit, rank 4 Gentleman Wind Flower. Hey, this looks like a tendon refining flower. Shao Chen noticed a white flower. That flower was very simple, it did not have any bright colors or a strong fragrance. It was very simple. Shao Chen held it in his hands and looked at it carefully. He finally confirmed that this was the tendon refining flower. It could increase the toughness of a cultivator's meridians and repair damaged meridians. It was very precious. There were many spirit herbs that could repair meridians. However, none of them were as good as the tendon refining flower. The tendon refining flower could even repair a cultivator's meridians. This was why it was so precious. Essence had to pass through the meridians before it could circulate freely. If the meridians were damaged, the cultivator would not be able to circulate essence. If Shao Chen could increase the toughness of the meridians to a considerable level, then he would not have to worry about forcefully using too much essence when he was cultivating or fighting in the future, causing his meridians to be damaged. Although Bai did not know the importance of the tendon refining flower, when he saw Shao Chen's happy expression, his face revealed a joyful expression. Shao Chen put away the tendon refining flower. Suddenly, a doubt appeared in his mind. For a rare herb like the tendon refining flower, there would definitely be a strong spirit beast guarding it. Although Bai was strong and very fast, he should not have been able to obtain the tendon refining flower so easily. Could there be something that I don't know? Shao Chen squatted down and asked, Bai, tell me the truth. How did you obtain this tendon refining flower? When Bai heard Shao Chen's question, he immediately lowered his head. He was like a child who had done something wrong. He did not dare to look into Shao Chen's eyes. Could it be that he snatched it from someone else? Shao Chen felt ashamed in his heart. If he snatched a spirit beast, Bai would not lower his head. He did not know who he snatched it from. Dong! 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 Just as Shao Chen was thinking about whether or not he should return the tendon refining flower to someone else, the sound of hurried horse hooves could be heard. There should be a lot of people because the ground was trembling slightly. A group of more than 200 bandits appeared in front of Xiao Chen. One of them pointed at Bai and said excitedly, "First leader, I did not lie to you, right? The tendon refining flour did not belong to me. It was snatched away by a little fox. Look, I was not wrong. There was indeed a little fox." Pa! The leader of the bandits was dressed in snow-white battle robes. He looked very dazzling in the dark night. He slapped the person who spoke and scolded him angrily, "Fool! Why are you so excited after a spirit beast snatched something away?" The other bandits all laughed loudly. Indeed, they were the most terrifying group of bandits in the Devil Savannah. They had always been robbing others and killing spirit beasts. Since when did they get snatched away by a spirit beast? This was a disgrace to bandits. The bandit on the ground felt a burning pain on his face. When he heard the laughter of the crowd, his face turned even hotter. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. Suddenly, he looked at Bai and revealed a ferocious glint in his eyes. He pounced forward and scolded, "I don't believe I cannot deal with you. Watch how I teach you a lesson." Before Xiao Chen could make a move, Bai turned around and swung his arm to the right. There was a strong wind, and the bandit that pounced over was immediately blown away. Even Lu Suifeng, an inferior-grade martial saint, was toyed around by Bai. How could a martial Grand Master bandit be a match for Bai? That bandit landed headfirst on the ground and rolled a few times. When he got up, he could not even tell his bearings. He walked towards the first leader of the bandits in a daze and scolded, "Little bastard. Don't think that just because you are on a horse, I will not recognize you." After he said that, he charged over again. The first leader was furious. He sent out a palm wind and knocked this person away. He said with a sullen face, "Just trash, I don't care about you." When Bai felt the killing intent from the first leader, he felt some danger. He immediately jumped onto Xiao Chen's shoulder and felt safer. He made a face at the bandits. What the hell? Even foxes know how to make faces these days. When the crowd saw Bai's face, they were all astonished. Since it belongs to the bandits, I will just snatch it, Xiao Chen thought to himself. Xiao Chen swept his gaze across this group of bandits. Of the 200 people, the weakest was a medial-grade martial Grand Master. The core of the group was 20 martial saints. The first leader, who was wearing white battle robes, had the most horrifying cultivation. He was a superior-grade martial saint. He should be weaker than Xiao Chen when he first left the mountain. As for now, he was no longer on the same level as Xiao Chen. Chapter 287. The white-robed bandit slowly rode his black warhorse to within 10 meters of Xiao Chen. He said with a sullen expression, "Regardless of whether you took my tendon refining flour or not, hand over your spatial ring. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing you." Xiao Chen revealed a faint smile and said softly, "If you are capable, then come and take it yourself." Reckless. The white-robed bandit exerted strength in his legs and his warhorse charged at Xiao Chen at lightning speed. The killing chi of the white-robed bandit merged with the baleful aura of the warhorse. It was like a sharp sword charging at Xiao Chen's deity Si. Unexpectedly, this white-robed bandit knew some mental attacks. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen's spiritual sense was very strong. He did not fear mental attacks of this level. "Since you want to play with mental attacks, I'll play with you." Xiao Chen's lips curled up in a cold smile. His vast spiritual sense turned into a deity holding a sharp sword. With a "Pu," it shattered the sharp sword flying at him and charged at the white-robed bandit. Suddenly, the white-robed bandit felt everything in front of him disappear. He found himself in a desolate land. A spiritual sense in the sky looked down at him majestically and gave off a resounding voice, "Why are you not kneeling when you see a deity?" The white-robed bandit panicked. He immediately realized that this was a mental illusion. He quickly bit the tip of his tongue and the pain brought him back to his senses. This deity was something that Shao Qian had created casually by imitating the mark left behind by the sages in the silver warship. It did not have much use in actual combat, it could only stun enemies of the same cultivation level for an instant. However, this instant was sufficient. By the time the white-robed bandit recovered his senses, he discovered that Shao Qian had already kicked at him from the air at some point in time. Bang! Before the shocked gazes of the bandits, the white-robed bandit could not react in time and was sent flying by the kick. While Shao Qian was in the air, when he landed, he gently stepped on the back of the warhorse. A huge force immediately pressed the warhorse to the ground, making it unable to get up again. Clouds began to gather in the sky. Lightning streaked across the night sky, emitting resplendent light. Amidst the boundless light, Shao Qian used the force of his kick to soar into the sky. As he flew, his aura continued to accumulate. Suddenly, a huge lightning vortex formed in the sky. The roars and gallops of a vast army came from the whirlpool. The sound was deafening, echoing for dozens of kilometers. It's him. He's that violet lightning fiend. Run! Someone among the bandits suddenly shouted in horror. Then, the 200-odd bandits desperately pulled on the reins and turned around. However, at this moment, the warhorses under them could not be controlled, neighing crazily. The bandits quickly abandoned their horses and fled. No matter what the white-robed bandits said, they did not stop. When the white-robed bandits saw that the situation was hopeless and that the few core martial saints had already started to flee, he sighed heavily and turned around to flee as well. Thunder roared, 10,000 horses galloped. Shao Qian gently pointed the saber in his hand downwards. Countless knights on thunder warhorses leaped down from the whirlpool and landed on the ground. Then, they quickly chased after the scattered bandits. In the dark night, these knights flickering with electric light turned into purple shadows. They galloped around the devil savannah at night, looking very dazzling. Bang! 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 Explosions rang out continuously. Without exception, the 200 bandits were all struck. The weaker bandits were blasted into smithereens by the combined attacks of the many knights, dying on the spot. Only the martial saints and above managed to survive. Their complexions turned pale and they vomited blood. They quickly fled into the distance without looking back. Shao Qian shook his head slightly. The might was still insufficient. He had gathered his aura in a hurry. He had to think of a way to quickly raise his aura to its peak. Withdrawing his gaze, Shao Qian ignored the scattered bandits. He focused his attention on the white-robed bandit that he had focused on. Under Shao Qian's control, at least 100 electric knights crashed into the white-robed bandit. Although the other party could still fight, they were no longer a threat to Shao Qian. Lightning evasion. An electric light flashed and Shao Qian landed beside the white-robed bandit. He repeated what the white-robed bandit had said earlier, no matter what your purpose is, I only want the spatial ring in your hand. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. The white-robed bandit struggled for a while before he took off the ring and handed it to Shao Qian. He said coldly, don't look down on the devil savannah. This is not a place where you can move unhindered. Shao Qian smiled faintly and ignored him. He had never been arrogant enough to think that he could move unhindered in the devil savannah. The devil savannah was vast and boundless. The entire savannah was about half the size of the Shiha province. Furthermore, this was only within the great Qin nation. It extended beyond the borders and was even larger. It could be said that the devil savannah was just the tip of the iceberg. With such a large area and countless bandit groups, Shao Qian had always been cautious. When he ran into a strong bandit group, he would immediately avoid them with his spiritual sense. He would not have any other thoughts. After all the bandits had left, Shao Qian looked in the direction of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and prepared to travel through the night. The commotion tonight was too big. He was afraid of startling some strong bandit groups. It was safer to travel through the night. In the Devil Savannah, where the tendon refining flower grew, Murong Chong looked at the empty ground and the corpse of the spirit beast guarding it. He frowned. Hu Chi. There was a soft sound of wind behind him. Murong Chong sensed it and quickly turned around. He saw a mysterious person wearing white clothes and a white mask appear in front of him. The mysterious person in white said in a hoarse voice, "Murong Chong, you seem to have forgotten our agreement. You have entered the Devil Savannah once again." Murong Chong said sullenly, "I am only here to search for the tendon refining flower. I have no other purpose. Aside from me, only your people know about the tendon refining flower. I am willing to pay 1 million inferior grade spirit stones to exchange for it." The mysterious person in white said, "Even if you pay 10 million, it is useless. Someone took it away yesterday." Murong Chong's expression changed. He emitted a surging killing chi. A murderous intent appeared on his stern face as he said, "Who? He is also a Qingyun Peak disciple like you." "Oh, I forgot that you are no longer a Qingyun Peak disciple," the person in white said indifferently. Murong Chong's killing chi quickly dissipated. He was very adept at releasing it. He had a pensive look on his face as he said, "Since he took it, it is all the same. I will take my leave first." "Who?" The figure of the person in white suddenly moved. It was as though he teleported and instantly appeared behind Murong Chong. Then, he sent out a palm strike. Murong Chong quickly turned around and sent out a palm strike. A huge force pushed Murong Chong back 10 steps. His complexion paled and blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth. The person in white took a step back. No, the expression under the mask was somewhat astonished. He said, "This palm strike is the price for breaking the agreement. The reason why an agreement is called an agreement is because there is no reason to break it." Murong Chong looked coldly at the person in white. He did not say anything and turned around, disappearing from the vast savannah. Glittering Wukue. Shao Qin shouted and a saber light flickered. A saber chi made of a divine Wukue tree branch flew towards a group of bandits with a shua sound. Blood spurted out and miserable cries resounded. The dense purple saber chi was boundlessly tyrannical. Several bandits were knocked off their horses. Wukue transforms to chi. The divine Wukue tree of the ancient divine valley appeared. After a while, it turned into saber chi that filled the air. It danced around in the air and chopped a large group of bandits in half. Chi breaks Wukue. Shao Qin shouted and the saber chi in the air gathered back on his saber. It turned into an extremely dense saber chi. The leader of the bandits could not dodge in time and the saber chi pierced through his chest. With the death of the leader, all the bandits immediately scattered, fleeing in all directions. Shao Qin ignored them. After he took away the spatial ring of the bandit leader, he quickly left the place. Shao Qin was not in a rush as he walked through the Devil Savannah. He treated this return journey as experiential training. During the day, he would kill strong spirit beasts and bandits. At night, he would use medial-grade spirit stones to raise his cultivation. When Bai gathered enough spirit herbs, he would refine medicinal pills. Shao Chen's strength soared every day. However, on this morning, he suddenly felt uncomfortable in his heart. This feeling had been present for the past few days. However, it was very mild. Shao Chen did not mind it. It was only when he got closer to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion that this uncomfortable feeling became stronger. It was impossible to ignore. Could something have happened at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? Shao Chen looked in the direction of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He had a bad feeling. I have to rush at full speed. I cannot stay here any longer. Otherwise, I will not know what happened. I will feel uncomfortable in my heart, Shao Chen muttered to himself. Shao Chen executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art and turned into a purple shadow. He started to move quickly on the vast devil savannah. Along the way, he met with bandits and strong spirit beasts. However, Shao Chen ignored them, he simply avoided them. 2 days later, Xiaochen was already halfway through the Devil Savannah. He would reach the Heavenly Saber Pavilion in another 5 days. Just as Xiaochen was about to stop and rest, a group of bare-chested people wearing only shorts appeared in the distance in Xiaochen's vision. Xiaochen sat on the ground and drank a mouthful of water. He smiled faintly and said, "I wonder which group of bandits ran into Kim Fatso." Kim Fatso was different from Xiaochen. He did not kill people, he only sought wealth. However, when he ran into Kim Fatso's bandits, he felt even worse than death. This fellow's stingy character was displayed to the extreme when he ran into the bandits. Aside from leaving the bandits with a pair of shorts, he would not leave them with anything else. This kind of humiliation was even worse than death. Only Kim Tae-ho could do such a thing. Just at this moment, a familiar voice came from the wind. Xiaochen frowned slightly and stood up suspiciously. Why did he seem to hear Kim Tae-ho's voice? Looking up, Xiaochen saw the faces of some people. They looked like the guards of Kim Tae-ho that he had seen in the past. Xiaochen went over to take a look. He put away his water bottle and quickly leaped forward. After a while, he finally saw the people in front clearly. What he saw shocked him. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.